Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LFC Roundtable podcast. This is the podcast where we break down everything from the feeds and the whole season, because this is our wrap-up roundtable where we are going to talk about everything about Big Brother 20, put it into context, give everything final ratings, do rankings, argue about things, and talk about probably gossip from after the show. Who knows? I'm sure Brent has some things to say. So I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today is Brent Wolgamott. How you doing, Brent?
Hey, Taran, it's a fun day not getting attacked by all the Tangela fans. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Also with me tonight is Melissa. How you doing, Melissa?
I'm doing great. I had a really, really fun time at the wrap party and got to meet a bunch of the players and a bunch of previous players. And I had just a really fun time, and it was really weird seeing them like right in front of me and talking to them. And a lot of the time I'd be like, oh, I'm Melissa from RHAP. You probably have not heard of it, or maybe you have, but maybe you will. And it was a lot of that sort of thing. And some of the people did a whole like, oh, okay, yeah, I think I've heard of that. And they're probably lying. And some people had heard of it, but it was mainly the people who were pre-jury who had heard of it and were like, oh yeah, totally, this is great, love it. So yeah, it was just a lot of fun. It was wild being there. So yeah, good times.
Yes, some people in the chat are, is it the rap party from Big Brother 20 or the RHAP party, the secret one that we have all the time that we never tell anyone about?
Oh, right, yeah, no, not the secret one.
Okay, good to
It
know.
was the WRAP party.
All right. Well, we are here live on Monday night to probably argue about what happened across the entirety of Big Brother 20. Very excited to be here. And you can send questions in to me on Twitter at ArmstrongTaran if you want to, though you probably have missed your window. But if I see a really good one over there, I'll ask it. So here we are. Let's talk about Big Brother 20. It's been a couple weeks. We waited a little bit. We were in New York, Brent and I at least, for the live know-it-alls, and that sort of was one impetus for delaying this wrap-up. But also we wanted to kind of wait until there was some stuff settled. We got some more information through some interviews, and there's been some, minor developments. I don't think we learned a whole lot. Unfortunately, we have not had a chance to talk to any of the house guests yet. I know that is a big question that a lot of people have. We have been reaching out to people. I myself have gotten into contact with JC. So I will be doing an interview with JC. I have tried contacting some other people as well. Nothing back yet on that front. Rob, I believe, has also not necessarily found much success, but we are trying. I promise. We try
Which
to do this
is
for you
bizarre.
guys.
I mean, I'm just going to put it out there because I'm going to vent a little bit for the fans, okay? And, I know Rob is in the chat, so I know he's listening to this right now. But this has to change next season. Somehow, some way. I don't know how we're going to change it, but it has to change. We are the preeminent thing that's covering Big Brother with the widest viewership. Oh, we are, Taran. We are. And freaking
Taran, don't be modest.
I'm serious. It's the truth. And I love Eric over your reality recaps, by the way, who I live tweeted some of his interviews. But he's like a one-man show over there, and he's got people left and right going to his doorstep, and somehow we can't get him over here at RHAP. I don't know why that is. I mean, I told people on Twitter that I was this close to taking people over to my YouTube channel and interviewing them there because I just want to talk to some people about some things because I love Eric, but I wasn't getting a lot of game responses to what he was asking over there. So I wanted to ask some really game strategic related questions. Unfortunately, it just isn't possible. But I swear to you people that I hear you out there, and I will make an effort to change the status quo going into next season. There, I'm done.
Well,
To be fair, it's not up to me, obviously, but my preference
Me either.
My preference is to wait until they've had a chance to like watch some of the season or, get some more information so that they understand more of what's going on rather than like the immediate, like, okay, let's talk about it. Like, because I just feel like you don't get the real
Yeah, but by then no one
responses
cares.
maybe, but I mean, that's
that's
just what
what
I
Rob
prefer.
always says. I'm just saying.
Maybe, but that's just what I prefer for them to
the
know
Look, I'm being real with you guys. It's the truth. So I'm just telling you that next year it's got to change. I don't care how it needs to change, but it needs to change. We need to do better.
Well, the point of my message was to say it is not for lack of effort on our part. We have been reaching out to people. I think the people that we are reaching out to are people that haven't done many interviews, and so
well, that's fair.
We have not we are doing our best, and we tried to get these for you guys. I'm sure at one point or another we will have more for you, but in the meantime, you can look for the JC interview. I'm very excited for that. I will not have any subtitles for the interview, unfortunately.
Are you going to be interviewing him on like a Rap Proper or at the Taran show?
It's a Big Brother interview. It's for the RHAP feed. I would, of course, love to have him on for the Taran show as well. But
sounds good.
Yes, there are definitely. I would look for Caitlin on the Taran show as well, because that's going to be excellent.
That will be fabulous. I'll drink to that.
Yes. So here we are. So Brent, you in particular seem to have a lot to. You've been watching these interviews. The ones I think Scottie, Fessy, Haley, Rockstar.
I didn't watch Winston. He was out too early.
I mean, basically all of Faute have done lots of interviews outside of the house. And Brent, you have been closely watching these interviews as your Twitter feed has indicated.
And the funny part is that most of the people who follow my Twitter are Faute people, or at least most of them who tweet at me are, and they agree with most of what I'm saying. I mean, I really went after Scottie pretty hard. Haley, not as much. I was really more having fun with Eric in that particular interview. But the Scottie one was just beyond the pale for me. He apparently knew everything that was happening in the house at every given time. He knew about level 6, even if he didn't know the name. That he totally would do over again voting for or voting against Swaggy while wearing the Swaggy t-shirt. His game apparently rises and falls on top of Steve summer of 2018. It's clear to me that Scottie's game ended the moment Steve left the house, because at that point Scottie didn't have somebody to talk to, and here's the thing. Scottie had it planned out in his head how his season was going to go. He had Steve. He had his ride or die. He had this side over here, this side over here. He was in the middle. He was sure that they were going to be able to ride it out until the end, and then live happily ever after, sitting in the final 2. And when that changed after one vote, he was like fish swimming upstream and didn't know what the hell to do. He also says that the only reason he trusted Haley was because he went to everybody else in the house and didn't find trust with them. And so she was the last person standing, which, of course, is a load of bullshit. He trusted her because he was in love with her. That's why he shared everything with her. So let's call it like I see him, Scottie. And what else? I mean, they were just most of it was a load of bull. I'm just being real.
Have we discovered any new information? If people have not been following all of the interviews and the gossip or whatever, are there any breaking news items that we should be made aware of?
Very little. He reiterates that he voted for Casey because of. Well, first he said in the backyard that he voted for Casey because she won the final HOH. Then he said to Eric that he voted for Casey because of the speeches, to which I said, oh, you mean the speeches where she gave the same answer 4 times over in a row? Meaning, are you serious here? He maintains that is the real reason. I would concur with I can't remember if it was Melissa or maybe somebody on Twitter who said that I think that he feels ashamed of his game now, or of his vote, because he realizes that America likes Tyler, and thus he was trying to backpedal a little bit in terms of, maybe I got that one wrong, but he doesn't want to admit that he got it wrong. He doesn't want to admit that he's just flat out bitter. That's, to me, and I think there are many people in this jury who are not bitter, Taran, so I don't want to be accused of just, they're bitter. But I do think of the 9 people on the jury, I think he was the most bitter.
Well, yeah, I don't necessarily think I would disagree with that. And I also think that...
let me mark this date down. Hold on.
I also think this is an interesting topic that we'll talk about probably later on in the podcast. But I think that the precedent set by the Big Brother 19 jury, I think, was probably very influential for Scottie, who was sort of embedded in the fan base and knew that the previous jury was applauded for being bitter. I think that he was probably surprised when he found out that, oh, wait a minute, this is not the same thing. Tyler just won fan favorite. That's right. I was, it's an interesting thing to think about. Another big revelation for me that happened pretty soon after the season ended was that Tyler had done some exit press, and in that exit press he has admitted that he had thrown the Final Four veto. That when essentially if he had won that veto, that he would have been forced to choose between Angela and Casey. He would have had to evict one of them. So because of that, he decided he wanted to throw the veto. He did not want to have to make that decision. And as Brent is, miming over there, he called this, I doubted it. I said, I don't think so. He said on the show.
And why did you? And why? Tell them why you doubted it. Because I know the reason why you told me you doubted it.
Yeah, because he said on the show that he was trying to win.
Yeah. He was freaking lying in the diary room.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
Look, that was all. Look, I was just like, I don't have any reason to believe that he threw it because he said he didn't in the diary room. But you were right. You had the right instinct there. He did in fact throw it.
The tell to me was how fast he was moving during that competition. I mean, he was moving like me after like a big plate of pasta. It was ridiculous. Like you're fighting for your life in the game, for the chance to evict somebody and further yourself to win Big Brother and $500,000, and you're literally moving at the speed of a snail. If you go back and watch that, I think it's pretty clear that he's throwing that. But then I was with you. I was like, well, why is he lying in the diary room? I don't know. Maybe he did tell the diary room the truth, and then they were like, oh, that's not really going to play well. And then he went to what he said was, I'm really disappointed not to win this veto, which if you're throwing it, obviously that's not true. So there was definitely something lost in translation there.
Yeah, and who knows? Part of it is probably that I tend to space out a little bit during the competitions because they don't interest me very much. But what are you gonna do? And there's definitely lots of people have said to me, maybe he's lying in the exit press. Maybe he was trying to win, but now he's lying because he doesn't want to have to give an answer about who he would have chosen. To which I say, look, if he's lying in the exit press, then he's lying in a way that makes his game look worse, and so I'm gonna believe him. Like I gotta take you at your word if you're gonna say something that's not very flattering to yourself. So that's really the stance that I have on it. Melissa, you were also at as you mentioned, the rap party. What was your experience like there?
It was really fun. It was brief conversations with all the current players because they, were being swarmed by everybody and it was like they could barely move. It was a really great experience. I didn't get to talk a lot of game with anyone or actually get any interesting information really. It was a lot of just oh, great job, very casual, quick conversations. But everyone was super nice and super receptive to the fans and talking. And I had no bad experiences with anybody. A lot of people were saying online after the fact, a lot of, people who weren't even there were saying oh, Angela was being really snooty. I heard that she wouldn't talk to people and was taking Tyler to herself. I didn't experience that at all. She was really friendly. There was no weirdness there. People were commenting, saying they got that information from my tweet where I said that Tyler and Angela were joined at the hip. And that was just the truth. They were just standing next to each other the whole night. What am I that's all I was trying. I wasn't trying to imply anything. I wasn't trying to say I can't get to Tyler because it's stupid Angela. Literally, that was not anything I was implying.
Well, I would just say, as someone who knows you well, that is how I took that tweet. when I saw you tweet,
of course, Brent
Tyler
takes it that way.
When you say Tyler and Angela joined at the hit, I was like, oh, she's giving us the shade. She can't get Tyler.
No, I literally was just saying, oh my God, it's crazy. They literally have been together all night long. And that I couldn't get to them. That's literally all I was saying.
Okay.
And, you know, and also I would like to say something about the whole Tangela thing. Probably there's a lot of really normal, nice Tangela fans out there, but I'm getting so much hate from Tangela fans. I like
More than
they
me?
seem to
Oh, it's
think
impossible.
that I absolutely hate Angela and Tyler being together for some reason, which I have no problem with. I hope they're very happy. And also, apparently, there was some rumor that was started that I recommended that people mail feces to their PO box, and I have never advocated for that. I would never say to do that. I think that's absolutely disgusting and awful. So all these rumors that people are throwing around saying that I did that and then hating on me for that and retweeting that over and over, like, that's enough, guys, because I have nothing against Tyler and Angela. I hope they're very happy. So there we go. Because this has been like, honestly, it's made me not want to talk about Big Brother anymore. Like, for about this season, not generally, but about this season, because it's like I can't say anything without getting a ton of hate about this Tangela thing.
Right.
Or me saying that I absolutely hated this season or whatever. Like, I loved this season. I don't know how many times I can say this over and over and over and over and over again. Like, I loved this season. It was a fantastic season. It was a great season. And people are saying, yeah, well, if you like the season so much, why were you harping on it all? And why are you nitpicking it? Well, what else are we going to talk about? Literally, are we just going to sit there for the entire podcast saying, wow, what a great show? The end. Let's move on. Like, you have to talk about the strategy and little things that are wrong with Tyler's game or little things that are wrong with Angela's game or anybody's game. I'm specifically calling out those two because that's the one that gets called on the most. They love it when we talk bad about Swaggy and Haley and Fessy, but then everyone hates on us when we say even one negative thing about Tyler or Angela. Okay, anyway, whatever. That's all I'm trying to say is I have nothing against them.
Well,
everybody's great. The end.
I will say that, you know, we may be pressed about these people and their decisions in the house, but one thing that is clear to me is that these people are not pressed. These people are living their best lives, and good for them. I mean, that's great for them. The Faute people and the Level 6 people, anybody in the house, really, they are completely happy with the games that they played. I have not heard nary a word from anybody about, oh, I wish I could have done this. Maybe a little bit from Fessy lamenting Haley's decision not to put him up for the veto when she was the hacker, and then everything that took place after that. But aside from that, I think that everybody has been very good sports about everything, and we should celebrate that. So good for them. I will say. I don't know then, though, that, and I'm not sure that these two things are related. It does seem to me that Tyler specifically, because this season rises and falls on Tyler for me. And his decision to really not give a flip what sort of happened at the end of his game, I guess does not sit well with me. And so thus, because of his decision to throw the veto at Final Four when he could have guaranteed himself $500,000. Taran, I don't know if that goes hand in hand or not. The fact that they are in such good spirits about everything and they really don't care. And the fact that he kind of didn't care what happened at the end of his game once he knew he had pretty much locked up a Final Two spot, but not necessarily the win. Do you hear what I'm saying there or not?
I mean, I think that there's definitely a sort of shift that we've seen where we saw Tyler in game mode for 100 days, and then immediately it's like trotting on a beach with Angela. It's and Big Brother be damned. Like, is that kind of what you're talking about?
No, I mean, I'm talking about up until, like, say, day 85, he was a powerhouse strategically to me, making all of the right decisions at all the right times, getting people out who were threats to his specific game, and then at the Final Four, inexplicably deciding, you know what? I'm going to throw this competition. Let's be clear. Let's back up. At Final Four, there's a veto that takes place. He's playing in it. I think he could have won it or at least tried. If he wins it, he can evict KC, which obviously would break a Final Two, but hell, he broke how many other Final Twos along the way to get to that point? I don't know why this one was any different. He cuts her at Final Four, takes Angela and JC to the Final Three. JC still is not going to win either Part 1 or Part 2. Angela and Tyler go to the Final Two together after taking each other, and then he wins 9-0, or at worst 8-1 if Casey was bitter and wanted to vote for Angela. So I'm like, how do you play so well for so long with your eye on the prize and then drop the ball in a way that I can like literally pinpoint to like, this is why you lost right here. This is why you lost.
Well, we'll talk about that, but but I was very disappointed when I found out that Tyler threw that veto. Obviously, for me, it definitely does have a massive impact on how you look at his game as a whole. I think that what you saw, the reason why it seemed so incongruent with everything that he had done previously, is that he never had to betray people that he was truly loyal to. He had a side, and he was loyal to his side. And on his side, he was loyal to his people first. So he was able to eliminate the entire other side first. Then he was able to eliminate the people that had betrayed him a little bit, or that hadn't listened to him, or that just weren't as loyal to him. And then he was able to just kind of take down his couple of people that he was truly loyal to, and when it came down to that, like the true cutthroat, I need to now cut the people that have given everything to me, he didn't really have it in him, and that's definitely an unfortunate quality in somebody that was otherwise very, very good at the game. So there's definitely a lot to be talked about there, and so you're saying that has been where a lot of your frustration with Tyler has come from?
Yeah, I do feel like that sort of laissez-faire or flazé-da, if you're from RuPaul's Drag Race, attitude of, I don't really care what happens at the end of the game as long as I'm in the final two. So that sort of like is reflected in their behavior outside the house, where he's sort of like, I don't care. Casey's a deserving winner. She won. Congrats to her. I mean, I haven't heard one lick of regret from him outside the house, which I guess is a little frustrating to me, because if I lost 5-4 and there was a point in time where I knew I could have won, gosh, I'd be bitter about that. But maybe that's just me and not him. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, he seems to be enjoying life at the moment, and good for him.
Yes, and he apparently will not play Big Brother again without Angela. They said it in the Peet.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like if he was asked, I don't think he'd be like, absolutely not unless Angela's there with me. I think it's like, I think it's one of those things that now they're saying it, but I think if he gets the offer, I think they would.
I totally agree. Yeah, in People Magazine, they were asked, and Angela was like, "We're a package deal." And
Angela says it, and Tyler's like, yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Dr. Will got Boogie on All Stars. I mean, he was not getting on without Dr. Will.
Dr. Will, Tyler, like, stop. Like, I suppose. By the way, I wanted to say, is there somebody whose fortunes more drastically changed than Angela? I mean, think of it this way. If she's never in a showmance with Tyler, if she's just part of Level 6 and she's one of the people doing his dirty work and she gets evicted in 4th place, I feel like no one even talks about her. She's just one of the many of Level 6. She's like, Level 6 member number 4. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you were part of the Alliance too. You were the furniture. But now that she's with Tyler, it's like, ooh, Tyler and Angela and Tangela. And she, like, I feel like her celebrity, I guess is the word I'm looking for, is so much bigger than what it was before, surely because of the fact that she's with Tyler. Do you guys concur on that, or do you think that we'd still be talking about her no matter what?
Oh, I definitely think it has to do with Tyler. I think that if she didn't get together with Tyler, it wouldn't. Nobody would be.
Yeah, I mean, like that. I think that would be true of anybody that came off this season. Like, Tyler is the one that most people are paying attention to, so anybody attached to Tyler is going to get more attention.
Yeah, I don't care about JC now either. Oh, of course, you are doing an interview. Hi, JC, love you.
JC has been wonderful.
I'm very interested in JC's interview. I think his is going to be one of the more interesting interviews. I think there are a lot of people coming off the season that I don't really care to hear their interview, because I feel like it's all going to be made up or not really factual, or it just doesn't really matter. But I feel like JC, like, he was doing crazy things all season, and so I'd be really interested to hear, his logic behind everything. I'm just nervous that maybe he's going to try and rewrite history, and I hope, Taran, when you do the interview with him, you don't let him do that, like being like, oh, well, I knew all along about Level 6, and I just figured I should tag along with them, or I was part of it on the outside, or something like that. Like, he wasn't. So
here's the thing. We'll get to see just how effective he is, because in the house he would often say things and people would just be like, yeah, okay. And so if he's able to do that to me, then maybe he actually was doing something.
He'll be totally fooled the whole time. He'll be like, no, I was in level 6. I started level 6. So don't be stupid, Taran.
You're right. I must have been the hinky vote. Oh, how did I not know?
I will say,
I had no idea.
Please make sure that you follow up on his bullshit if you hear bullshit, because that's what I got mad at Eric for, was letting people just spout complete falsehoods, even though it was a question from the fans. And I like, if I'm a fan and I hear something and I have my question and you ask my question and it's false, you give me a false answer as a house guest, I would expect the person who knows better to say, well, there was this, so what, for someone who saw you do X, Y, and Z, what would you say to that? And so, follow-ups would be appreciated.
Yeah, follow-up questions for sure.
For letting me know how to do my job.
I'd like to know.
I try.
No, I would like to know, like, how much of his DR stuff and stories were scripted and how much was genuine. Like the whole, like, oh, I'm fattening people up. Was it the DR making him say that he was doing that, or was he actually doing that and then went into the DR like, this has been my plan all along, or did they kind of like egg that out of him? I feel like a lot of his storylines possibly could have just been fabricated and manufactured by production.
I'm pretty sure the fattening thing was JC. I'm going to be really heartbroken if it wasn't.
I know.
Okay, all right. I'm not buying it, but
never
okay.
Know. Those are the crucial questions.
All right. So anything else that's been going on between the end of the season and now, before we start to look back at the season proper?
Can I talk about Merlino, or can I not do that?
I mean, do people want to? I mean, they don't seem particularly relevant to this
All
particular
right, I'll take 15
podcast.
seconds. Just let me. I have never seen such an attention whore or narcissistic couple than Mark and Elena. Like, literally one of two things is true: to get engaged at Jess and Cody's bridal shower, number one, or to make a joke about it on Instagram and let people think you're getting engaged at Jess and Cody's bridal shower. It just takes the insanity of your thirst to a new level for me, and it makes total sense why she blocked me on Twitter. I can only hope that Mark can do the same.
Well, oh my.
Did you guys see this?
See the I don't know. Look, there's weddings. Cody and Jess got married, and
they had a gender reveal, which
was a very tentative married. They got married.
Making sure I remember correctly.
They got married and they had a gender reveal party the next day.
And it's a girl.
And Tangela was there. They attended the wedding and the I think the wedding.
Riley was there as well. I know she's in the pictures. I don't know if she's at the actual wedding, but love her.
And Robin Cass did the thing that you do at weddings.
Officiated.
Yeah, nothing.
Exactly.
Wow, Taran, you know a lot about weddings.
Very knowledgeable.
I know, right? I can love Jess and Cody and Rachel Riley and still be through with Mark and Elena. I feel like that is a totally reasonable position to take.
Sure. So I was also reminded some other news came out that we had talked about was Bailey pregnant. They were kind of implying that she was. We talked about that on the finale show. We got some very, very sad news after the fact that she had been pregnant and then lost the baby in the jury house, which is incredibly sad news, and I cannot imagine what that must have been like. She also apparently had found out that she was pregnant the day before she got backdoored, which I'm sure contributed to the just like intense emotional experience that whole thing was. So that's if you did not see that news, it's very, very sad, and I don't like having to tell you about it, but it is what happened, unfortunately.
Yep.
Yeah, and I believe that's all we've got. Sorry to end it on a bummer there.
What a downer, Taran.
Yeah. It's I just can't imagine just like being stuck in the jury house and having to. I'm impressed that she even managed to get through the whole jury thing, going through all that on her own. Like, I can't imagine. All right. So let's look back at the season proper here. Because it was a great season. Oh my God. So many great moments. Week after week for so long, things were just going crazy. And I wanted to know if we had any, like, what is our top moment of Big Brother 20? Because I feel like there are a lot of big favorite moments that we could pick here, and I'm imagining that almost all of them are going to be in the first like 2/3 of the season. But man, I honestly like thinking about it, I can't pick just one. Like literally every week there was something amazing and magical that happened where I'm like, flipping Caitlyn at the last minute in the first week, and then the swaggy back door, and it's just like there's so many great moments. Melissa, do you have a favorite?
I don't know if I have a favorite moment, but basically, like in the first half of the game, anything that Caitlyn was a part of was always so exciting, and you had no idea what was going to happen because it really was just totally erratic and it was totally unpredictable. And she was a very fun house guest. That's the kind of house guest that I like because, well, I mean, obviously I like the gamer people as well, but in terms of like the drama people, I like that sort of drama where it's not mean-spirited. It's all just pure drama, but it's not bullying or making fun of people or whatever. She was always really nice to everybody. She was never mean to anyone, but she still managed to make just so much chaos, and it was so fun to watch.
Yeah, I would probably say week 2, the entire week, because it had so much. We got a great HOH in Caitlyn. Then we have a great backdoor plan in place with Swaggy, ultimately ending in Scottie's ill-fated decision to vote Swaggy out while wearing a Swaggy t-shirt, and then immediately deny it to the people who trusted him, only to then confirm it later on in a game decision I can't even explain. So that whole week probably had everything that you can want in a Big Brother game, as well as a fantastic blindside of Swaggy at the veto meeting, along with not one, not two, but 3 of his allies knowing about it ahead of time and doing absolutely nothing to stop it before it happened. I think that was probably it for me.
Yeah, I think my favorite TV moment was the veto ceremony where Swaggy got backdoored. It felt like a red wedding. It like with the way he looked over at Fessy, and Fessy was just like, I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. And he was just dumbstruck. He cut to the diary room session, and he's completely silent. He doesn't have anything to say. And Caitlyn is bawling, doing it. That moment on television was fantastic for me. On the feeds, I think it was the night where JC convinced Fessy to put Scottie on the block. That was just a roller coaster of a night.
I hated that.
It was so beautiful, though.
It was so awful.
It was so beautiful and awful.
I was, like, furious. Also,
yeah, we all went to. I remember Arista Cox tweeted that she went to bed after Fessy won, and then when she woke up the next morning and saw what had happened, that JC had convinced Haley and Fessy to put up Scottie. She was just like, really? Like, this is what I get for going to bed.
My favorite part of that night was I was on Twitch and I was watching the feeds, hanging out with people, and I saw Brent tweet, you guys are idiots if you think Haley is falling for this. That was my favorite part.
Everyone had such faith in Haley, such unbounded faith.
We did.
And I had faith in her too. I thought, she's gotta see through this. Like, she has to understand. But she didn't. Yeah. And another thing I was going to bring up is that big giant fight with the blood, and it really had everything. It was drama and injuries and
again, it like put into a whole new context, knowing that Bailey had just found out that she is pregnant with Swaggy's child. Like, if you go back and watch that again, like it really does come off in an entirely different light.
I feel so bad for her because people didn't know what was going on throughout her entire journey there. So they were just like hating on her and bashing her and saying that she's, unhinged and unstable and da-da-da. And
well, she was unhinged. I mean, I'll say it. She was unhinged. And I love her, but
extenuating circumstances
that are contributing to this. I mean, she's got so much inner turmoil that she didn't really talk about any of it on the feeds. The only thing there was just a couple brief, quick, coded messages between her and Haley, I think. But there was nothing. I mean, she didn't vent to anyone. Besides in the DR probably, but that's weighs on you. And then to be backdoored and everything. Oh gosh, I just feel bad for her.
Yeah. All right. So many great moments. I did release a form for the audience to fill out to answer some questions about the season prior to this podcast. There's still time. If there's barely any time, but if you want to, you can check it out on my Twitter page at Armstrong Taran. You can quickly fill this out. Lots of questions to answer. It's kind of like an exit survey kind of thing about the season as a whole. And the first question I want to talk about here was, we had been talking about it throughout the season. How would you rate the season as a whole if you had to rate it at this point in time? The season's over now, so it's time to give your final verdict. What is the official rating that people would give Big Brother 20? I want to get you guys to weigh in first here. Brent, what do you think? A rating out of 10, just like we did over the entire season. What kind of rating would you give it?
I would probably give it, because I think Big Brother, even at its worst, and I think worst would probably be, 19 or 9, ironically. I think even then it's quality television, at least for people like me. So I would give this season an 8.5. That's probably where I would be, because I feel like it had all of the ingredients of a great season. The twist really didn't impact the game too much, with the exception of maybe the hacker twist, but the initial twist on what they were selling the season on with the powers and all that basically had no impact. And but it did lose a little steam at the end, to the point where even the main hero of the season doesn't care how the season turns out, which was particularly galling for me. So I would give it an 8.5.
All right, Melissa.
Yeah, I'd give it an 8. I felt like throughout the season it was really fun with various power struggles, which I really like. I always like when it's pretty evenly matched on the sides and you can kind of go back and forth. So it was interesting because while Faute had all the power, they never got their way, and level 6 was always able to turn it around. So it was interesting to see that, and I really like that sort of a season. I hate the steamroll type of thing, and I liked that there were a lot of players there, and everybody there, even people who we thought wouldn't really care or weren't really coming to play. We thought maybe they were coming for just the exposure or whatever. They were there to play, and everyone was all in, and it was really, really fun to see. However, like Brent said, it did really fall off near the end, to the point where there was really just nothing going on, in my opinion. I just didn't really have a lot of desire to watch the feeds near the end, just because I felt like no one really cared. It seemed like everyone was okay with being in the final 2 or final 3 or final 4, whatever. They all liked each other, so they didn't really want to hurt each other and all that sort of thing. And that really just doesn't sit well with me. So I just felt like it really did fall off near the end. So yeah, overall, great season. Loved it. It's such a huge improvement over Big Brother 19. And so yeah, I'm giving it an 8.
All right. Yeah. If I was cheating like Brent and giving 0.5s, then I'd probably agree, actually, an 8.5, because to me it's kind of like it's a week 9. That's how I have
I give it a 9.
Yeah, because I initially, right after the season, I was like, it's an 8. The ending, it ruined the 9, but really the ending kind of ruined the 10 for me. I think that if Tyler had won, for me, it probably would have been a 10, despite the lackluster second half. Just the first half, or we keep saying half, but it was really the last third of the season that started to go poorly. But despite the last third of it, the first 2/3 were just so fantastic. And because of that, I did go back and I was like, I'm being too hard on it. It's a 9. It's a weak 9, but it's a 9 for me, at least. It was so fun to watch, and going back and looking at just like the pure joy that I was experiencing watching this first 2/3 of a season was just so great. So for me, the season is a 9, and I do want to. I want to revisit our season rankings. We did long ago, many years ago. When the LFC was different people. I was
gonna say, is this BM before Melissa?
Yes. We did a full season ranking. I believe this was before 18. I think it was right after 17 had ended, or it might have been before 17 began, actually. I can't remember. But we ranked all of the seasons, and I want to go back and do that again. Now that we have another like truly great season on our hands to put into the mix here, I want to go back and talk about all the seasons and rank them in some kind of order. So if you guys are interested in that, stay tuned. It will for sure be some kind of off-season podcast coming up. But the number you're waiting for, how did the audience rate this season of Big Brother 20? Throughout the season, it was hovering above a 9. It was like a 9.2, 9.1. Toward the end, it lowered down to like 8.9, 8.8. The ending did not do the season any favors. It ends out at around an 8.7 for the audience. So an 8.5 is pretty close. Week 9 is a good pick there. So there you go. That's how the audience felt about this season. So another thing that I wanted the audience to do was to rate the twists, because we had essentially 3 twists. We had the power apps, we had the battle back, and we had the hacker. So I wanted the audience to rate how they felt like, because there are good twists. People often, Taran, he's so anti-twist, because so many twists are bad. I'm anti-bad twist. I love the veto. The veto was a twist once upon a time. There are things that do work out well. It's just that I feel like the people who come up with these twists are often terrible at coming up with twists. Like, they're not thinking about, because look, when a video game designer creates a new game design thing, they balance it. They go, okay, well, if I add this element, then I need to do other things to counteract the effects that's going to have on the game. The Big Brother twist creators do not do that. They just throw things in and let it affect however it's going to affect. And that's why I often am against this.
That is such a good analogy, because I used to play this game called Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and it's a fantastic game. Actually, probably one of the best games ever designed. But there is a weapon that you can get called the Chrysogram, which basically makes you invincible. It instead of like one shot of a sword, it does like 100 shots at one time with one press of the button. And it's like having a machine gun inside of a video game. So that's what the twists are like on Big Brother that are bad. They're just completely over the power of the game. Even though I love like Big Brother Canada 3, but like the have-not power in Big Brother Canada 3, where Brittany got the power and then she got to remove 2 people from the block, and she got to name both of the replacement nominees. And the HOH still couldn't play in the next HOH competition, even though she basically got nothing out of her HOH. That would be a really bad twist, something that totally upsets the balance of the game and, makes it awful. So I hear you, Taran. And I like that analogy, too.
Thank you. So I asked the audience to rate the twists. Of course, I am very curious to know as well what you guys thought of the twists. So the first one that I think most people are in agreement here. We'll start with the audience's rating of the first one, the power app twist. I think that this one was the best twist of the season, which was not saying a whole lot, especially considering that it was basically kaput. It did not
Not
go
used,
anywhere.
yeah.
I know a lot of people make the argument that the only reason Sam was saved in the first week was because she had the power app. If you listened to my Tyler game recap that was like 3.5 hours long, so I don't blame you if you didn't, then you would know that when we went back over this first week, Tyler did actually talk to the cameras early on in the game, and he did say prior to his knowledge that Sam had the power that he wanted to save her and that he was going to try to save her. He was just like, maybe if she has the power, I can use that to try and save her. Would he have been successful in saving her? Maybe that's where you can say the twist had some kind of impact. But at that point, I feel like you're really kind of reaching. And I feel like it didn't really have that big of an impact, even in that one small moment. I think the bigger impact is that it got Bailey evicted sooner than she probably would have been. So if you're looking for the impact of the power app twist, it's probably Bailey leaving when she did. So the audience gave the power app twist a 4 out of 10. Slightly below average there. Not a huge fan, but not super condemning, right? Like this isn't like, they're not saying it was the devilish. It was a 4 out of 10. Like, eh.
Right. So like the higher the number, then the better the twist, or what? Ooh, I'm sorry. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Well, what I didn't like, what I liked about the Power app was, well, I guess this is including the crap app, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. What I liked about it is that the crap apps didn't affect the game. I was nervous that it was going to be something like, you can't participate in the next veto competition or something that was like really game changing. And I was really glad that it was just like stupid things, because then there really was not a big impact. What I did not like was that I didn't like the fact that it was like they had to be trending. I feel like I'd much prefer for it to be like, who do you like and want to reward this power to, and who do you hate? And then you would give it to the person, you give the crap app to the person you hate and give the power app to the person that is loved by people. Because in my opinion, like, there are times where you want to like punish a house guest that you don't like. And it's not just about like, oh, you're boring, I'm going to give you a punishment. There were certain people who I would have wanted to give a punishment more to than others. And I didn't like the voting system that they had, because then people started trying to rig it and saying like, well, let's just not mention this person at all. Like, regardless of the questions, let's vote all across the board for whoever we want to win. And then it's like, what's the point of any of the questions anyway? So it was just kind of stupid. And I think they should, if they're going to stick with these, like, rewarding and punishing sorts of powers, then they should, and if they're having America vote for it, then they should have it be, who do you like and who do you not like? Who do you want to have this power and who do you not want to have this crap app, rather than this random like trending thing.
Well, I will say, I'll just put it out there. I disagree with you, and I agree with you. I disagree with you in terms of what you're in terms of the mechanism for it. Like, I didn't love the mechanism of deciding who was trending, who was not. On the other hand, I'm all for punishing the people who are boring. I don't want to see people on Big Brother who are boring, and the people that we're not talking about were the people who are getting the crap apps. I mean, Rachel, Haley, and Fessy were two of the most non-entities for the first half of the game. I didn't even know who the hell most of them were. Rachel could have been an amazing house guest. Instead, she was a total dud. Haley really wasn't much until, like, say, week 4. And she could have been something maybe during week 2 if she would have, tried to change Caitlin's mind when she had knowledge of the swaggy thing, but she didn't. And Fessy was nowhere to be found. So I was completely fine with those people getting the crap apps. But I concur with you that I didn't like the mechanism that they determined to get it. But I do think, though, that if Big Brother had a straight up, vote for who you hate the most, basically, that I think, like, the people that are really playing hard would probably get that. Like, I'm certain that Swaggy would have gotten a crap app if that's the way things were. And I don't think he deserved a crap app, because he was playing lights out, even though he got evicted during week 2.
Yeah,
I think that, I just think that, like, in the beginning, I think that it could influence people to play it a different way. So if someone's playing in a way that you don't like, then it could influence them to play a different way. For example, maybe it wouldn't have worked well in this season, but for example, Big Brother 19, like, there were certain people who I really wanted to give that crap app to, so they would get the kick in the pants to turn their game around, or to, like, realize that whatever path they're on right now is the wrong path. I mean, there's a different way to do it where it's not just like a crap app, but like, and it's something that's just like like a Your Game Sucks app or something, and it's like the audience rewards the person who's playing the worst or something, and then they're like, oh shoot, like I need to fix this, I need to turn it around, and like the crap app probably wouldn't do that, and you're right, they probably would have given it to Swaggy, and I wouldn't want it to be given to Swaggy. So I think that it's one of those things where maybe in the future, if they come up with some sort of way, I just don't like the voting on this weird scale that nobody really follows, and it's just like I
am not a fan of giving America the chance to decide things.
Me too.
For multiple reasons. First, I don't trust, and I guess it's not technically just America. There are lots of other people from other countries that vote as well. But the audience in general, I don't trust them to make the right decisions in the same way that I don't trust the producers to make the right decisions. I think that the best decision that the audience made in terms of giving somebody a power was when they gave it to Sam. Because imagine if Sam had Bailey's power app. I don't remember what it was called, but the one where you take over essentially, or you replace the nominations. Sam would have been a total wild card. Even the people that had influence over her, she doesn't always listen to them. She would have nominated two completely random people, and it would have been total chaos. And I think that the further we went into the season and the more that the audience knew how to manipulate the vote, the worse the decisions became in terms of who they gave the powers to. So I think that, like, and even saying all that, I think that the twist was not great as a whole. I think that these powers were not properly balanced in general, and so it's like I don't know if I would have wanted to necessarily even, like, I don't want Sam to have the identity thief power, but if you're going to do this twist, then I think best case is for Sam to have that kind of power instead of the bonus life, which I felt was the worst one for Sam to get. And there are reasons to believe that they wanted her to have that power, which I don't really fully understand. But what are you gonna do? So I also gave the power app twist a 4 out of 10 as well. I feel like it was a little bit worse than like a replacement level twist for me. It didn't work out the way that they wanted it to. I was glad that it was able to be neutralized, but this had a lot of potential to throw wrenches in things that were already going really, really well. And I think that if one of these power apps had interfered in the natural course of these first 2/3 of this season, that would have been a real shame. So not a huge fan, but I was happy that they were able to be neutralized in the way that they were. What do you think, Melissa?
Sorry, missed that last part.
What kind of rating would you give this twist?
Which twist?
The power app.
Sorry.
Twist, honey. The one that the audience gave a...
I thought we... All right. Okay. Sorry about that.
She just completely lost the plot there.
Doesn't care about what Taran says.
I'm sorry. No, I do care about what Taran says. I'm just getting some more... I'm getting some more Tangela stuff. And that's... Yeah. It's very distracting. I...
to mute. You can like do a thing on Twitter where you mute people who use certain words. You need to do it for Tangela.
I know. I don't understand it because now we're being called out saying that we're not doing the interviews because of Tangela fans.
Okay, so
that has nothing to do with this.
I did want to address this. People, Brent, he's a lot louder than I am. So I said something and then Brent said something and then people got an implication based on what Brent said and did not listen to the actual words that I said. We have tried to reach out to these people. Believe me, I desperately want to talk to Tyler about. We are not trying to talk to. We are trying to talk to Tyler. I would love to talk to Tyler. I want to make that happen. I am trying to make that happen. We are doing our best. We promise.
And by the way, let me also say I was reminded about. Okay, Rob was in the chat and he was like, okay, so just to be clear, I'm the one. I just work here, people. I don't run the joint. All right, but I got a big mouth. Rob follows the rules. That's the thing. Anybody with a microphone can do whatever they want, but Rob follows the rules because he has a relationship with CBS, so we have to go through the proper channels if we want to interview people, and if we don't do that, then we're not going to risk it because otherwise we wouldn't be able to bring you all the other great coverage that we bring you for Survivor and Amazing Race and whatnot. So don't listen to me is what I'm saying. I'll do my best in trying to change it in the future, but there's a reason things are the way they are, but it is still frustrating at times. So there you go.
All right. Well, Melissa, do you have a rating for the Power App?
Yeah, sorry about that tangent. I just wanted to be clear that like this has nothing, like not interviewing them doesn't have anything to do with fans or not fans or anybody else. This does not have anything to do with that, and it's not on purpose that we're not interviewing people. Okay. I would give it honestly the same as the fans probably. I'd give it a 4. I don't like when they announced the twist, I was like, oh no, I didn't want a twist. Even after it was done, I still didn't want it, but I was like, thank God it's over, and it didn't really cause that much destruction. So yeah, I mean, as twists go, it wasn't really that horrible because it really didn't have an impact at all. Besides a few minor things. So I'm giving it a 4, and not because I hate it, but I don't think I would ever give a twist more than a 5 besides like the veto or something really, really awesome.
Yeah, I would probably give it a 6. Here's the thing. I really enjoy this twist. I enjoyed it. I liked getting to be able to punish the boring people. I liked getting to reward people that I liked. And I did like Tyler early on. I loved Bailey early on. And Sam, I understood why America voted for her. So I got it. And I also liked giving the house guests the ability to choose from a menu of possible powers. I thought that was interesting. I thought that was an interesting take on it as well. The one thing I would probably alter would be the length of time. Like, I loved it. Not only do I love the twists, Taran, but I love the fact that they occurred early in the game when things are not set and things are still pretty fluid. But, in this particular game, I think things were probably pretty set after a week. I mean, people had picked a side and they had stuck there. So I would have liked for the twist to not continue on. I mean, I think Tyler had his up until like when the 3rd or 4th juror was evicted, for heaven's sake. So it doesn't need to last that long. If they're all pretty much done by the first week of jury, I'd be fine with that.
All right. The second twist of the season. So for the record, we're basically at a 4 there. The audience gave it a 4. We gave it a 4. Next twist we have to talk about is the hacker twist, which I felt like was definitely much worse because this one, this is along the lines of a roadkill or a battle of the block, where this gives a massive advantage to the majority alliance. It gives them a big chance to essentially make null and void a week that the minority is able to win HOH, and we saw that happen directly when essentially Rockstar goes out on Haley's HOH. I feel like this is a very poorly thought out twist. I think that it produced a little bit of drama, but in general, I feel like what it did to the season, or at least contributed toward doing to the season, was it was not good. It was not a good twist. I gave this 2 out of 10. Not a big fan of this one, Brent.
I would give it a 4. I like the twist a little bit better than you. And the good thing about it to me was that it was decided by the house guests. Everybody had an opportunity to win this power. The one thing I didn't like was the ability to change the HOH's nominations before veto. I felt like if you just gave them the ability to hack the HOH's ability to nominate somebody, to pick somebody to play for veto and take away somebody's vote, that would be enough. Like that, if you give the hacker 2 powers, that would be just fine with me, and it could still really impact the game by taking away someone's vote and putting up a particular person to play in veto without anyone's knowledge of it. The fact that you could also change their nominations is really what set the world on fire there. So, but I did enjoy it for what it was, and it really sent the house guests into a tizzy, and I like that about my twist. So I give it a 4.
All right, Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd give it a 2 as well as you, Taran, because I liked the way that they did it, where they all, dressed in like hacker gear and they all went to their separate rooms in that like hotel type building. And, each hacker room was like designed a different way. I thought that the way they did it was really cool. And the fact that they were all doing it at the same time. So you could see like this person got it, this person didn't. And you could see their reactions to when they got it or when they didn't get it. I really liked the way it was done. It felt, mysterious and cool. But yeah, they just had way too much power. It really affected the game in a negative way. it was too much, and I really didn't like it at all. I guess I liked the idea that it was anonymous, because then it was like, you could choose to reveal it or maybe you wouldn't. And it was like this cool thing where you could possibly just like nominate someone like Haley originally did and then just like fly back under the radar and no one would have any idea it was you. But you could throw a target out there on someone who wasn't necessarily, who maybe people were afraid to nominate. I thought that was really cool, but it like Witless in the chat says, Hacker Comp just made me miss the mole, and it totally did. It was so reminiscent of the mole, and I think that's why I liked it a lot, because I loved that show. Yep. So that was the fun part of it, and I liked how secretive and cool it was, but it just was too much, and I don't like it twists that have that much power and that affect the game in that way. So yeah, that's why I have to give it a 2.
Yeah, and I think placement counts too, where like where this was placed in the season, it was too late. If this had been the very first twist, if they had done 2 weeks of the hacker twist in the first couple of weeks of the show, that it would have been better. It would have been better, but it was not a good place for this twist. It really helped slow the gameplay down a little bit, I think. The audience is just about in the middle of us here, with a 3 out of 10 for the hacker twist. Not a big fan of the hacker twist either, the audience. All right, final twist to talk about, the BB20 battle back. This is a very common twist nowadays. At some point it's going to become a staple. It's not quite there yet, but when you start going, when is the battle back, instead of is there going to be a battle back, that's when you know it's kind of not really a twist anymore. It's just kind of part of the game, but it still is a twist right now, which means still open to be rated here. Melissa, how did you feel about the battle back this season?
It sucks because normally I'm a fan of the battle back. I feel like it gives someone a chance to come back into the season who I usually, want them to come back. I mean, if I'm thinking back to like Big Brother 16, I really wanted Zach to come back in the house. That, was not the case, and that was disappointing, but or I wanted Hayden to come back too, and that didn't happen either, and we almost got Jocasta. So it's really the way that it's done. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But, this season, I didn't like it. I don't like it when it's kind of up to chance for people to come back. I felt like this one was a little bit up to chance because, they just had to like drop the balls in, and Fessy, I mean, it really seemed like he was going to win it. And it seemed catered to him winning. I like it when they have to fight for it, when they have to do some sort of endurance competition, and it's part of the HOH. So you could possibly come in and win HOH all in one swoop. I really like that. But this didn't have that, and this also just like sucked because it was way too late in the game. Nothing could really be done. I like it when it's earlier and it really could make a difference, and the person can come back in and still have allies and friends, and we're not left to like the final people when
pre-jury.
There's like it needs to be way earlier if it's going to be at all. I was really excited about Scottie coming back, but it just really didn't pan out. So I'd have to give this probably a I'm between
Sounds
3
like you're
and
gonna
4.
say 3.
I'm between 3 and 4 if I'm being honest, because I'm thinking to myself, like, do I like it generally better than the power apps? And yeah, I do like it generally better than the power apps. Do I like the way it played out in this season? Not at all. So
think about it in terms of placement. Like, would you rather see the power app in the exact same spot that it was this season in another season, or would you rather see a battle back in the exact same spot that it was in
I'll give it a 3.
Okay. I would give the battle back. I am not a fan of it, especially post-jury. I'm open to it if it's pre-jury. I'm still not a fan, but I'm open to it. But a jury battle back is just, I feel like it's almost never going to play out well. I don't think it ever has. I don't think there's been a single instance where a battle back or a returning player post-jury has added anything to a season. I think that the biggest examples of people coming back into the game and adding some things were maybe Amy in Big Brother 3 and Kaser coming in and then going right back out. That was kind of eventful. And maybe Judd giving Andy some ammunition to use against Amanda. But like, there are no big moments. There are no like truly big things that we like are, oh yes, thank God. You know, Victor obviously had a big impact on the season, coming back twice. But I don't know. It's like, did that really? It just helped Paul get to the end and then come back for 19. I don't know if that really was a beneficial thing in the long run there. So you know, I'm not a fan of this. This is a 1 out of 10 for me. Post jury battle back. It's better than an audience vote, but still, it's not good. I don't like it. Brent, what do you think?
Yeah, I give it a 2. It's awful. I don't even like it because people in the house, they basically have to play against it, knowing it's going to happen. They're like, well, if there's a battle back, I don't want to say this. It stifles drama, because if somebody's not coming back, you can do whatever you want to them. You can tell them off, you can flip them off, you can, reveal your secrets and your goodbye message. You can do whatever. But when you know a battle back's coming, you can't do any of that. And I do feel like that much of the drama in the second half of the season was stifled because of the fact that people were waiting for the battle back to be over, knowing that Caitlyn's power was supposed to activate. It didn't, and they virtually knew that they were going to get a battle back. I will say that the producers, I do not believe, were going to have a battle back. They were, waiting. I think they wanted it to be a pre-jury thing, but then when Caitlyn screwed up the puzzle, then they had to figure out what the hell to do. So on balance, I hate it. I agree with you. It never changes the status quo. I do think that somebody came in pre-jury would be great. I think that would be, because usually it's a piece that somebody can pull in that somebody needs, but by the end of juror number 4, usually things are pretty much set. So yeah. I'd give it an awful score. It's a 2.
The end of the season should be compressed, not expanded. I think the end of the season is usually not a great part of the season. You want to make it as short as possible. You do not want to elongate the worst part of the season.
Consequently, the beginning of the season is usually great. Like the first 6 weeks are I love the first 6 weeks of any Big Brother. Even 19 was pretty good for the first 6 weeks, So put your eggs in that basket, people. Come on.
The audience...
they should be compressing the final part like they did with Big Brother Celebrity. Because
not like a final four.
Let's not go that far.
No. I don't mean the end game. I meant throughout. How throughout it was you do an eviction and you do this eviction. That's what I would want, because by the end it's just all right, okay, come on, let's go to the next thing. People aren't strategizing in between because they already know what's going to happen. It's already been kind of decided.
Yeah. The audience also very, very against the Battleback twist, gave it a 2 out of 10. Very, very, very poor rating for the Battleback twist. So with all that said, the audience giving pretty poor ratings throughout. I asked them, do you think you would have enjoyed the season more if there hadn't been any twists at all? I've always wondered, do you think that the season would be better without twists? Pretty overwhelmingly, 83% said yes, they would prefer no twists at all to the twists essentially that they saw this season. This is not necessarily a statement against all twists all the time, but certainly the ones that they decided to implement this season, people felt like they would have enjoyed this season more if there hadn't been any twists. Only 17% said no, they liked having the twists. They feel like they were, or at least at the very least, they would not have enjoyed the season more without the twists. So that's interesting information there. What do you guys think? Melissa, would you have enjoyed the season more if the twists had not been there?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I feel like I don't ever need or want twists. Anytime a twist happens, I'm just please don't let it affect the game a lot. Please, let's just let it move on. The only twist I really wanted to affect the game was Caitlyn coming back in the house, and that didn't even work. So I honestly, I would have been happier without the twist.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with Melissa that I didn't need twists for this season to be great.
I agree. I might have been a little more on the fence if it had been just the power app, but you add in the hacker and then definitely add in that battle back, and I feel like, yes, I definitely would have enjoyed myself more if those had not existed. So I also asked, do you prefer a 7-person jury or a 9-person jury? Because
7.
yes, we've had a 9-person jury ever since, I believe, season 15. But recently they went back to a 7-person jury in Big Brother Canada 6. So that was very interesting, and I was very curious because also the outcome of the season would have changed in all 3 of the last 3 seasons had there been a 7-person jury versus a 9-person jury. Paul would have won both times, and Tyler would have won this time if there had been a 7-person jury as opposed to a 9-person jury. So Melissa, you said you prefer the 7-person jury. The audience agrees. Almost 3/4 of the audience, about 72%, say they prefer a 7-person jury, with only about 28% saying they prefer the 9-person jury. And I agree with that as well. I feel like also just 9 people is too many. I feel like it lessens the impact. I like part of what I love about Big Brother is that there are a bunch of people, and then we narrow it down to a few people, and you remember the few people. But I feel like with 9-person juries, it kind of spreads it out enough that you only really remember the top placers. But in previous seasons, you remembered the jury. You remembered all of those people. The pre-jury, you could forget about them for the most part. Right. But you remembered who those people were on the jury. And I feel like you kind of lose that with the 9-person jury. There's just too many to keep track of. They're not as special anymore. And that's I mean, on top of all the other game reasons that we've talked about, that's something that I miss about the 7-person jury.
Yeah, that's very true. I could tell you every jury member from earlier seasons, and because I'm thinking like season 10. I'm like, it all started with Libra and April and Ollie. I'm like, I know all of these people who I felt like I had a vested interest in, even though they were out of the game. I don't feel that way in these later seasons. Also, I do think that it should be rewarded for getting your people to the end. I mean, if you're somebody like Tyler, and it's not easy to get to the end of Big Brother. If you're somebody who gets your alliance to the end and you end up benefiting from it for sitting in the final 2, you should be rewarded for that. If there happens to, or like somebody like Nicole who have people in the jury who liked her, like Corey, or I forget who the hell voted for her, but people who were on her side. If you can get your people to the end of the game and they're there to vote for you, that should be something that's rewarded, not something that's diluted by a 9-person jury. So never mind the fact that arguably the wrong person has won 3 times in a row. Although I still love Josh winning.
I think Nicole does. I thought she played a better game than Paul in season 18. But I've long said that I feel like the 7-person jury is a better one. Because again, to the point that you're making there as well, is that it makes it a lot more difficult to control the jury. Jury management becomes a lot more difficult, significantly more difficult with a 9-person jury versus a 7-person jury. It's a lot more difficult to control who goes to jury. And then there are multiple people voting that you haven't seen for up to 2 months. How are you supposed to manage their vote when you do not see them for over 2 months, and then you have 2 minutes to talk to them 2 months later?
If that,
and people are like, oh, should have done better. Not even counting the difference between what it would be like to have a 7-person jury versus a 9-person, having a longer time to talk to them at the end versus a shorter time. The level of difficulty just increases dramatically. And again, it's like, I don't know, was Howard on the jury? I can't remember. You know what I mean?
Was he? No.
You know what I mean?
No, you're right.
But I had to think about
it. It takes away from it. It totally takes away from the monumentalness of being on the jury, because that used to be a huge thing, and now it's just like you're basically almost guaranteed to get on jury essentially if you just make it just a couple of evictions. It's just I don't like the 9-person jury. I think they need to go back to 7. It just seems like the 2 people who get out first don't really know what's going on. And they also get to then control the narrative because they're the first ones in the jury, and they can decide whether the jury is going to be bitter or not, or whether they're going to, root for one person over the other or whatever. And I just feel like, get rid of it.
On that point, I would like to say really quickly, Taran, you asked me if we learned any new information. It appears that, at least what we're being told, and these exit interviews are not canon, as Stephen Fishback would say, that there was no plan to pool their votes for the Faute people. That Scottie was just saying that for strategy in the house. I will say that I don't buy it. Yeah. I will say that Rockstar, when asked about it, had a really quizzical look on her face. And so maybe that lends itself to the fact that there's nothing there, although it also could lend itself to the fact that they don't want to talk about it and they're going to deny.
Well,
So,
also, like, she was asked about like a pact, maybe that she didn't see it as a pact, but more of an understanding. It's just like, it's such a weird strategy it didn't make sense as a strategy in the first place to
and
make
he didn't
it
play it like
wholesale.
a strategy.
Yeah.
He didn't play it like a strategy. He was going the opposite of what a strategy would be, because he was telling people like, oh, the jury hates Angela. You should get her out right now. Like, in what universe does that make sense, Scottie? Like, I've never seen somebody who frustrated me more than Scottie on Big Brother. And it's so weird because I want to like him. You know, he's a fan of the show, but just everything that comes out of his mouth is complete bullshit from my perspective. And he couldn't like play his way out of a paper bag inside of the house. So whatever. Oh, by the way, Scottie says he had the best social game. I just want you to know.
Look, there are a lot of ways. There are a lot of strategies that you can use having knowledge of the jury. One of them obviously being like, I can tell you what people thought about you. They think that you're not being, cutthroat enough. They feel like you're blindly loyal to your allies. That might influence somebody to be less loyal to their allies and therefore more loyal to you. You could say to them things like, if I go back into that jury house, then I know these people well. I know what to where to push their buttons. There's all kinds of different strategies that you can use if you're using it as a strategy. I have no reason to believe that, and many of the things that Scottie have said.
Oh yeah. Scott in the chat said Scottie should have, if he was using it for strategy, he should have said, Scottie should have told them that there was a pact to vote against Scottie. Like, whoever comes back in the house, we're not voting for them. That would have been a strategy.
There are so many options.
Guy, oh my God. I walked into that jury house and they were slapping me across the head. They were like, you're such an idiot, Scottie. I can't believe that you trusted Fessy. They think I'm such a dummy in that house. Like that, I would believe you made up for strategy, because it makes sense that you would make it up for strategy. All right.
There's so much available material there to use as like a perfectly good strategy to get you further in the game, and instead he just told them things that were not helpful for him at all, and
like actively worked against him.
Yeah, it just was like, why are you doing this? Like, I honestly think it was just one of those situations where Scottie was just like really excited that people, like, he had information that people wanted and they wanted to hear from him. And they were like, it was like sitting around the fire being like, tell us more. Like, what's going on, Scottie? And like, he's just there, like regaling them with the tales of the jury house. And it was like, they just wanted to hear more, and he wanted to give it to them because he wanted to be like the center of attention, that guy that everyone wants to talk to. And like, it sucked for his game because he let that take over and he gave away a lot of information he shouldn't have given away.
That sounds very very fun there, Melissa. Like, they wanted more and he wanted to give it to them.
That's good.
Right. So speaking of the jury segment and the questioning, something that we have long talked about and which had a significant impact on this season as well is the live Final 3 HOH competition leading to the live jury questioning, where they get assigned questions and they read it off of a card, and it takes
You're
place...
trying to make it sound really great and cool, but it is the worst.
It takes place in the course of about 5 minutes total. So I asked if you had to choose between part 3 of the final HOH being live and having this live finale in the way that, which I assume is the reason why they do this, or having the old jury questioning format, which would you choose? This is the largest margin of win here I have seen all season long. 96% say they prefer the old jury questioning. They do not care for the live questioning or the live competition. They don't care. Very, very large percentage of the audience is in agreement here. I would just... I mean, look, I know that RHAP is a small portion of the overall audience, but I mean, like, this is a very, very, like, large percentage here. Like, surely this is at least somewhat representative of the fan base as a whole. I can't imagine that there are many people that actually prefer, like, not having any kind of, like, there are so many things this takes away. Any kind of reunion, like, where you're asking other people, like, that's kind of gone by the wayside. A longer format where you're getting more, like, confrontation and drama at the end of the game. We're losing all of that. We're reading off of a card. I just, like, man, come on. What are we doing here? What are we doing, Brent?
It is so stupid. They need to do it like Survivor.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why they don't do that, because everyone's like, oh, well, but they want it to be live. Yeah, sure. Just, like, read the votes off live, whatever you want to do. But you don't need to do the questioning and all this sort of stuff. I mean, it's so dumb. I don't care if it's live or not. I want to see the jury questioning. I want to see a reunion. I want to see these people confront each other. I want to see, truths come out and people reveal things. And, and I want the winner to have the opportunity to really plead their case. I want the final two to plead their case, be able to, and the jury to, hold them over the fire and be like, hey, like, you need to tell me why you want to win, rather than like, okay, guys, let's continue on. Like, you only have 30 seconds. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'll just go ahead and like pile on. I mean, even I'm somebody who enjoys the final night on Big Brother, but I do think that they would get so much more out of it by moving it to what it was originally done. I think it's very telling that Survivor has improved their jury format, knowing that what they had before really wasn't working, specifically for their loyal fans, the people that watched the show. They decided, you know what, we're going to go to them instead of these stupid speeches, holding on to the Sue Hawk narrative of, oh, maybe somebody can give us a big moment like Reed with the Cinderella speech. Instead, let's open it up. Let's talk about outwit, outplay, outlast. Of course, I have my problems. Well, not any real discussion is, outwit, outplay, outlast. But it is an open air discussion amongst the players and the people who are in the finals about what really happened in the game, and a lot of crosstalk back and forth between people. Hey, no, you're wrong. That didn't happen. Or I don't buy that this is what or you didn't answer her question. Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like an appellate presentation in front of a group of judges who are trying to discern, what's to distill what's the truth here. But instead, they've gone to this where somebody like Tyler, who really, out of anybody we've seen over the past 10 years, had his foothold in the game in a way I've not seen for a long time. Wasn't able to tell people. Fessy, in his interview with Eric, said that I didn't know a lot what Tyler was doing, and he didn't have an opportunity to explain that to us. So maybe I would have changed my vote then. So I think even Scottie said that as well. So a lot of people, I think, would have changed their vote if they would have had maybe even 10 minutes with Tyler. But that's not what he got.
Yeah. Final question before we go over the players here. There was one change that the audience did like, and this was the change to the Final 3 HOH Part 3 of the Final 3. I hate having to talk about the Final 3 HOH because I have to say Part 1 of the Final 3, Part 3 of the Final 3 HOH. Okay, so
Part 3 of the Final HOH.
Yes.
That's all I gotta say.
Part 3 of the Final 3 HOH. It used to be, what did this juror member say? Did they say this or this? And it was basically a crapshoot. So I asked. This season they changed it to a more trivia style competition. And so I asked the audience, do you prefer the new format for Part 3 of the Final HOH that's based on house trivia, or the old format based on things the jurors said, which was often more random? And about 70% of the audience did prefer this new trivia style competition. I am on record saying I like the crapshoot. I like the randomness. I prefer that, but I am in the minority on this one. It seems like most of the audience likes that it's a little more merit-based. This final part of the Final HOH competition. Melissa, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like the merit-based trivia rather than just the crapshoot. I don't like it ever really when it's a crapshoot. I like the fact that if you really paid attention and you worked hard and you studied all season and you knew the game and you knew the players, that that it actually, could reward you. And I liked the fact that they had that. So I really did like the change. I felt like they wasted too much time with that podcast stuff. That's what we're talking about, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The podcast stuff. I like the podcast stuff, but put it for another episode when we're not like, come on, we got to get to the finale. So yeah, I liked it, but it used to be with the, the scales of Just Us or whatever. That one, I used to be less random. I feel like the questions were more like the answers aligned more with the questions. Now when they're asking the questions and the person answers it, it's like, what? There's no way they actually answered it that way. And that's where the randomness comes in. So I used to like Scales of Just Us, but now I don't really like that anymore. So I really like the change.
I feel like this is one of those things where, like, your grandma is remembering something and it was like, she's like, oh, it's so much better back then, but it really wasn't. Like, Melissa, it's always been random. Like, I can remember, like,
That's
Will and
totally possible.
Will and Dr. Will and Boogie, like, plotting about, okay, and he was like, okay, so if Will answers this way, it's got to be the opposite of what I think it should be. Like, I can remember June and Alison, like, looking at each other, even though they're divided, but they're like, what the hell? When people were answering questions during that. So it's always pretty much been that way. But to the point, though, I will say that I'm with Taran on this one, believe it or not. Like, I actually would prefer the old way of doing it in crapshoot, if you can call it that. Here's the reason why. For a different reason. I don't think it's TV friendly the way that they did it. They're putting all these things up on the board. I was evicted on day 66. I played in the second veto competition, and I was the third one out of, hanging on a wall. What the hell? Like, seriously, I mean, like, I don't know whether any of that's true. I mean, I thought it was interesting, the fact that they kept answering the same question, the same way every single question. But that just told me that they were obviously studying together. So obviously they remembered the same things. I just don't think it plays well from a TV perspective. I think the other way is much more TV conducive. And it obviously took up too much time to the detriment of the final questioning. So I didn't really care for it whatsoever.
Yes, and there are some people a little bit confused in the chat. So just to explain my position, why I like the crapshoot as opposed to the trivia. I like that the final three HOH, at least how it previously was a thing where you had to rely on your social game and your strategic positioning, as opposed to winning a competition at the end. I liked that if you were able to position yourself in a spot where both people would take you, so that you make it to the final two no matter what. I like the emphasis on the importance of that. And if you are able to just kind of like dominate your way through to the end, Kevin Martin style, I feel like that is less interesting over the course of it was fun watching Kevin Martin do it once, but I feel like if that were the case all the time, I feel like it would be a little less interesting. But that's just my personal opinion, and I understand
also,
that the audience does not agree with me on that.
The other thing you have to look at too is, like, what was it a detriment to besides the fact that they were running out of time? We got insanely more ball competitions because they were saving up all the what happened on what day and who was out what time kind of questions for the very end. So we didn't get any of that along the way. Instead, we got Casey throwing a flipping ball 500 times, and that's how she won 5 or 6 vetoes
and 500K. So let's talk about the players. All season long, we were rating the players week by week and buying stock and selling stock and having fun talking about them during the game. But now we want to give them a final rating as a player. We're going to start rating people. It's going to be a lot easier to do these winner rankings and stuff.
Who won that stock watch, by the way?
I honestly can't remember. It was one of you two.
It was me.
It was definitely not me. Although, to be fair,
Why would I be asking?
I realized that I won Survivor, and then I won Bachelor, or Bachelorette, and then I won Big Brother.
There you go.
Trifecta.
I'm like,
a little baby winning spree.
I'm killing it right now, guys.
So lots of people have been asking if we're going to do a Survivor draft. I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely down to do one. I was thinking maybe at like 15, we each draft 5 players.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, I was liking that. I didn't want to do one before we were finished with Big Brother 20, and also I knew that there was going to be a swap coming, and I wanted to get to know these people a little bit too. So I feel like we'll have a really good idea. By the way, just spoiler alert: I'm loving Natalie right now. Natalie Napalm is the best. I love her on Survivor. Taran and I were sitting next to each other during Survivor Know-It-Alls when the second person was voted out. I won't say in case you're not caught up on Survivor, but it was a treat to be there with an audience and a lot of fun. So I'm loving the season of Survivor, and I would love to talk about it.
Yes, Mr. Rufus Doofus says Stockwatch needs to change from all or nothing to total value. I should have put that on the form because I don't know if anybody remembers, but I would have won total value.
Yeah. I lost a lot of stock with Brett.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brett, it killed it.
All right. So let's go over these players. So basically how I explain this on the forum is that we are no longer rating them week to week. We are rating their capability as a player total. Their total capability as a player as a whole in general. So if you think about this in terms of if you took this player and you dropped them into a random assortment of 1,000 Big Brother games and you wiped their memory after each game, like they're just like randomly playing in each game, what percentage of those games would they win? If you feel like Dan Giesling is the best player of all time and he would win the highest percentage of games and maybe that's close to like 40% or 50% or whatever, then you'd say that is the top of the line, that's top tier, that's 10 out of 10. And if you feel like you could drop Victoria into 1,000 seasons and she would never win a single one of them, then you would give her a 1 out of 10, a worst possible rating that you could give her. And so that's the formula that we're going to use to rate these players as we go along. And I want to start with Steve, our good buddy Steve, probably the hardest one to rate considering he went out so early. I didn't really know what to rate Steve. I don't want to spend too much time on him, unfortunately. He seems like a lovely person on the outside of the house, but we did not see much of him in the game. What do you think, Brent? What did you give Steve?
I think overall he'd probably get like a 6. I don't think he has the ability to win many of these comps that Big Brother has or is likely to have in the future. But I think he has a great social game and people liked him. I mean, they certainly did not evict him because they hated him. They evicted him for other reasons, strategically, and because of where the numbers were. He was just a victim of the numbers. So I'd give him like a 6.
Melissa?
I'd give him like a 4, probably. Not because I didn't like him or anything, but I just feel like I don't really see his archetype winning very much. So I feel like even if he is a really great player, I just don't see him going into any random season and just like killing it, because I feel like he's already going to be targeted out like we're way early in the beginning just because he's older and just because he can't really, I mean, with the current style of casting, just because he can't really probably connect or bond with a lot of the people in the house just because of his age. So, yeah, I would give him a 4.
Yeah, being so far removed from the average age of the house is going to be such a massive disadvantage. I feel like Steve was somebody that was capable of doing better for his archetype, but we never really got a chance to see it. In general, with seeing so little from him, I also gave him a 4. The audience rated Steve a 3. So there you go. Not super high on Steve. I don't know. I can't calculate. If Alexander's in the chat, if you want to do a quick average for everyone,
I feel like it would be easier just to say are they top tier, middle tier, or bottom tier? But I give him a number.
The audience took the time to rate each one of these people. Brent, you can figure it out.
We can just rate them and talk about quick explanation.
I'm just saying.
In order to move past some of these early ones.
Well, it's also like a way of reminiscing back on like who these people were and their impact on the game and all of that stuff. I also
this is like that end segment on Survivor when we go past all the tiki torches and we talk about each person and remember them.
Remember
right.
Steve.
Steve, such great memories. Summer of Steve.
It was supposed to be the summer of Steve 2018. 7 people said that Steve was their favorite player. Out of 1,500 responses, 7 people said they loved Steve the most. And almost 150 said they would like to see him return to play again. So almost 10% would like to see Steve play again. It's pretty good. Pretty good for a first boot. There you go. Swaggy. Let's talk about Swaggy. He went out with a bang, and it seemed like he might have potential in the game. I, in particular, was kind of impressed with some of his instincts, but on the other hand, he seemed very, very distracted with Bailey. I feel like Bailey was ultimately Swaggy's downfall. He was way too concerned and wrapped up in the Bailey situation. Seemed like that really put a lid on his capability in the game. Melissa, do you agree? What was your what would be your rating of Swaggy?
Yeah, I feel like he already has this like massive barrier to get past, which is the Swaggy C persona. I feel like a lot of people, I mean, you drop him into a house of random people and they're already going to have to be like, oh, this guy, Swaggy C. Like it already kind of puts up some sort of barrier between you and people in terms of like bonding and stuff. And people, I feel like if he went in as Chris, he would have maybe a different situation, because if I'm being honest, if I'm in the house with someone called Swaggy C, I'm a little like, okay, this guy's really into himself. He's wearing shirts with his name on it. It's like kind of strange. But if I'm in the house with a guy named Chris, I'm like, oh, cool. Like, hey, my name's Melissa, blah, blah, blah. And I there's no like weirdness already there. So I feel like he already was fighting an uphill battle. Which I'm assuming if we drop him into a random house, he's going to do the exact same thing with the Swaggy C shirts and the Swaggy C persona and all that. So I just feel like he had trouble kind of just bonding with people generally, because I felt like he was always too confident and cocky especially when it came to strategy conversations. It was like, no, this is what we're doing. Like, I'm in charge here. I'm like the leader of this group. Like, he like put himself out there way too much. And I feel like he would do that every single time. So, I'd have to give him a 4. And it's not that I don't like the way he played. I really liked watching him and the conversations he would have late at night about how much he loved Big Brother and like talking about the past seasons. I like loved him during that time. It was just the time when he, put on that persona that I was like, oh, okay, this is not so great. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, to say something positive about him, I think he was utterly charming to a lot of people in the house. I don't think it's every day or every season that he's going to find someone as beautiful and as single as Bailey. I can look at, the last 10 seasons. I think he might have found like 2 different women on there that he might potentially fall in love with. The one thing I will say is that he does have a leader persona, and that's, he's always going to put himself out there at the front. But I also will look at the fact that if Tyler's not able to flip Caitlin's vote during week 1, and arguably because of the power app, and that's what Caitlin said was the reason why she flipped her vote, then Swaggy gets his way during week 1, and then I don't know what kind of a game we have after that. All of the people in Swaggy's alliance really seem to like him, and they were using him as a shield. On the other hand, as a shield, you're going to go out before other people. So I'd probably give him a 3, but for maybe a little bit more positive reasons than Melissa.
Yeah, I also gave him a 3. I feel like he could have potential, but I never saw it in the game, so I can't give him credit for something I never really saw. And ultimately, what I did see was not great from Swaggy, unfortunately. I did like him as a character. I would have loved to see him go further in the season, but I felt like the way he went out gave us so much gold content. Like I said, I feel like that was the best TV moment of the whole season, right. His blindside. So he contributed a fair amount to the season. He got 11 people. 11 people said Swaggy was their favorite player on the season, and about 15% of the audience would like to see Swaggy back. Would either of you like to see Swaggy come back?
I would watch any season that Swaggy C is on. I thought he was electric on my television. He was a comp beast when he was trying to win. Obviously, he didn't get that many chances at it. But I do think he's a fan of the show, you guys. He's hungry to play. I mean, he could be a great hero for many people or a great villain for many other people. He gets people talking. I never had such a polarizing reaction to when I was, tweeting out and trying to get him on RHAP to people who either wanted to hear from him or people who didn't want to hear from him. And I think like that's the kind of people that you want to have on Big Brother. I don't want to see, with all respect, I don't want to see more Steves and Scotties of the world. I want to see more Swaggies and Tylers, the people that get me talking. But anything he's on, I'm in.
I would want to see Swaggy again, but with the caveat that I'd want him in an all returning player season and not by himself.
That's a given.
With because that I was imagining like, oh yeah, I'd like him back, and then I imagined it being like a Paul situation with like him and then all these like minions, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is a nightmare. So yeah, I would like to see him with returning players.
Yes, we should make that clear. We are not advocating in any way any kind of mixed season. We are purely talking about an all-star,
like an all-stars.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
For those people out there who are coming for Swaggy, and I see you in the chat, who are like, you know what, he's so full of himself. We don't need to give him more TV time. But he's the person I've seen the least in the post Big Brother world. I mean, I see freaking Tangel all over the place, hence my tweet. But I don't see Swaggy and Bailey anywhere. Have you seen them anywhere? I haven't seen them anywhere.
I saw Swaggy dancing to Cheetah Girls this morning, and that was pretty funny.
That was fun.
I liked it.
I know. I'm just like you guys specifically like pick out the things that you want to remember and the things that you don't. Like Tyler and Angela, God bless them, could be on Instagram 100 times and nobody says nary a word, but Swaggy's out there 3 times with a freaking name on his shirt, and you're like, we are tired of hearing from him. The undertones are not lost on me, so shut it.
Could you also be remembering things that fit your narrative as well in this moment, Brent?
I never do that. What are you talking about? Moving on, sir.
I've been on a little bit of a roller coaster with Swaggy. I really wanted him back when he left because I felt like that moment was so great. Then it felt like I was kind of losing interest with his presence on Twitter, but I feel like he's kind of rebounded. He's kind of found his footing, and I would like to see. We talked a lot about like people like who make a big splash, the Devons of the world who come in hot and they play really hard and they go out early, they flame it. I would like to see like Swaggy more than I would like to see Devon. Devon went out with a whimper. Swaggy was fighting all the way down to the end. I think Swaggy on any season is going to offer entertainment at the very least, and he has the potential to also do well, which is I don't know if it's possible, but I think he has the potential there. Whereas, I don't know, somebody like Paul was somebody who like might have gone early and was this sort of thing as well. And I feel like you put Paul on an all-star season, he would have been very entertaining. You put Swaggy on a mixed season, no, we don't want that. But I do feel Jose, another one that granted, I don't know exactly how well that would work. We only saw him for 1 week, but I feel like Swaggy is a good person to bring back. All right, moving on to Winston, our third boot here. Winston didn't do too great. He was a lot of people's number 1 pick going in. I don't want to name any names, but he really charmed a lot of people. Really convinced them that he was going to do well. Maybe a lot of people picked him first in the draft instead of picking Tyler for some reason. Not that it would have mattered.
Yeah, I know. Like, that's like, go.
But ultimately, Winston kind of also went out with a whimper here. He was a little hectic in the house. He got a bit overshadowed by the presence of Brett. Also, I feel like I forgot to give the Swaggy audience rating, which was a 3. And I also gave Swaggy a 3, just in case I did not say that. But back to Winston. He went in, he got overshadowed by Brett, and then just kind of left unceremoniously. Maybe he would have been better in the house without Brett next to him. I know a lot of people have been like, Winston outside of the house reminds them a lot of the Winston that they thought he was going to be going into the house, and that's sort of without Brett's influence, that maybe Brett really does kind of have this bro-y influence on Winston that changes his personality. Maybe he would have been different without Brett, but again, it's like you can't really tell because you never saw him without Brett. So ultimately, I gave Winston a 4. I feel like there's something there. We all see it outside the house, but inside the house, it just wasn't working. So it's not great. Not great for Winston. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with everything you said. He, outside the house, was so awesome. And I mean, even when he left the house, even when he was in the house, we were like, what were we all thinking? Were we all just like duped? Like, what's going on? But then he leaves the house and he's that same person. And we're like, okay, yeah, okay, we weren't duped. Like, something happened in the house. Something happened, whether it was Brett or whatever, to change him. I talked to him at the wrap party and he was just like the Winston we all thought he was preseason. And he was super nice and super cool. Brett wasn't part of our conversation, and maybe it really does have something to do with it. I don't know. But yeah, I could absolutely see him doing well on another season. I mean, I guess it depends who he's in there with. But I don't think he had such a horrible game. I think that it could have been Brett leaving. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that it was Winston's poor game that made him leave the house. I think that Brett could have been just as easily gone out the door like Winston did. So, yeah, I'm going to give him a 4, though, because I feel like it's hard to tell. As much as we like him outside the house, I don't think that inside the house he played really great at all. So, yeah, I would like to see him back, though, on an All-Star season or something. Not on an All-Stars, but like on another season. I would like to see him play the game by himself.
I hear you. I will say that I think we've seen all there is to see with Winston. I think that some people are just not cut out for the game of Big Brother. I think it's true that Winston in real life is a really amiable guy, someone you'd like to hang out with. He did make a point on Twitter as saying, look, I'm from Kentucky. It was either kiss my gun or kiss my cousin. I chose the former, when he was talking about his promo video. So I thought that was funny and charming, and he can be charming, but within the game, he was just a nervous wreck, and he seemed to come off very manic to people in a way that I don't think was very conducive, along with the fact that we saw his strategic chops. Remember, there was an opportunity for him to get out from under the bus during week 3 when Scottie was HOH, just expose Tyler. Taran and I were waiting for that. That's why Tyler's game took a hit that week when we were looking at the stock watch, because we thought for sure that they would expose Tyler for what he had done and how he had flipped Caitlin's vote during week 1 to it, because obviously that's all Scottie cared about, was who was loyal to Steve. But instead, they went with this insane plan to go ahead and lie about their votes, which was obviously ill-conceived. So they had an opening. They just blew it. So I think I've seen all there is to see as far as their strategic chops go, and they weren't even that entertaining on my television. I was talking about both of them, but specifically Winston. So I'd give him a 2. I don't think he succeeds in many seasons. And look, to be clear, he was set up about as well as you possibly can be set up in a Big Brother season. He had an alliance of 6. They got their way week 1. He had a shield in front of him and Tyler taking bullets for him, making decisions for him. And somehow he still gets evicted during week 3. Only an idiot can do that, and that was Winston.
And it should be said that I at least from what we were shown on the edit, that Winston was instrumental in setting up level 6, but of course Tyler quickly took over, which was not great for Winston. I agree. Winston was a 4 for me, if I did not already say that. The audience agrees as well. Winston here at a 4, so just not super high on Winston. In terms of seeing him back, I don't need to see Winston come back. I'm fine not seeing him. 11% of the audience would like to see him, but what are you gonna do? 0 people chose Winston as their favorite player. So
wow,
sorry, Winston.
Wow.
Let's move on to potentially the star of the whole season here, Caitlin. Caitlin was our 4th
tens across the board. Oh, sorry.
Certainly a 10 for entertainment, but game-wise, man, it's hard to rate Caitlin a little bit, because I do feel like she is somebody that might have gone far in the game. I think that one of the reasons why she left was because somebody like Tyler was like, she's probably coming back anyway. And like, I don't know. I feel like she's somebody that could do well on the. I don't know why I get this sense, but like she reminds me of like a Rachel Riley, where it's like she kind of did well in some competitions. Granted, she did not do well in that puzzle, but she was doing kind of well in some competitions. She was just kind of this force that people didn't necessarily want to. If she'd survived a few more weeks, I feel like nobody would have wanted to touch her. They would have all just like been like, oh, that's Caitlin. But she did not do well. There's no getting around that. So ultimately, it's hard to give her too high of a rating. Brent, where would you land on Caitlin?
I mean, if we're looking at her overall game capabilities, I think I would probably give her a 3. Taran, I think that you're right in that I think in many seasons she probably does make it far into the game. But is this kind of a person ever going to win a jury vote? I mean, I can't see that happening in any universe. So I have to think maybe 3 is even too high. I'm looking. Here's the thing. In giving her a rating, I'm looking at like a bunch of different things, but also her ability to survive within the game. And I do think that I agree with you that on many seasons she would probably do well. And if she had gotten past week 4, and let's be clear, the person who got HOH during week 4 was a bit of a wild card. If it was anybody else, I don't know that. Well, maybe if Bailey got HOH. There were people who might have nominated Caitlin, but I think that it took us a little bit of a special circumstance for her to go out, and I think oftentimes she probably survives. So, but I don't think she can win, and so I give her a 3.
But and also like if Haley is not there and Caitlin does like hook up with Fessy and like they become an item, like I think they make it kind of far. I feel like she doesn't get into as much trouble as she did.
Yep, that's true.
And things could have worked out better.
And Fessy would have used the veto on her.
She needs a man. She needs a man. That's what she needs.
I need one too. I also gave her a 3 though. Unfortunately, just did not do particularly well here, and it's hard to imagine a situation where it went too much better. Melissa, what do you think?
I liked Caitlin a lot. I really did, and I liked the way that she talked to people. There were certain situations where one person, for example, when Haley and her had their like falling out very early on, and everyone was convinced that they were going to talk, Haley and Caitlin, and they were going to be super pissed at each other, and it was going to be a big blow up. And Caitlin was able to talk to Haley in a way that there was no blow up. It was like very calm and collected and like, hey, we just want to be friends. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, let's just work this out. And Caitlin has a way about her where I feel like she can get stuff done. I was going to say something and I knew you guys would take it the wrong way, so I'm not going to say it. I just stopped myself. But she
just assume that she said something offensive, everyone.
No,
us or the
it's
chat?
like dirty. But accidentally, and I realized it was going to be taken in a dirty way, so I'm not going to say it. Anyway, she can talk her way out of a lot of situations, and so I feel like she could do well. I mean, yeah, the puzzle was some sort of anomaly, but she was doing pretty well in competitions prior to that, and I think if she gets in with certain people, she could go really far, and I think. Especially, I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to use, like, now that they've played already, like, could she go back in and play a great game? Because now I feel like she would have learned and understood that she can't be so gullible. She can't just believe whatever the cute guy says. She needs to, trust her own instincts and trust her gut and go with what she feels. So I really do, yeah, like Scott says in the chat, that Caitlin was manipulative, but also easy to manipulate herself, which I do agree. But I think if she went back in, I don't think she'd be as manipulatable. Whatever.
Yes.
But I do think she was really good at manipulating people. So I'm gonna give her a 5.
All right. So the audience, not super high on Caitlin's game. They gave her a 3. However, she got a pretty decent chunk here. Almost 6% of the audience said Caitlin was their favorite player of the season, and a massive 55% say they would like to see Caitlin back. I would like to see Caitlin back.
I'd love to see Caitlin back.
Yes. Christina
Here.
in the chat, thankfully doing something that I forgot to do, which is giving us the average price over the course of the season for these players. Steve and Swaggy were both 3 in their weeks. Winston was a 2.6 and Caitlin was 3.25. So all pretty much hovering around where we are rating them now, for the most part. Mr. Rufus Doofus, wow, only 55%. 55%, by the way, is third place. She was the third highest vote getter for who you would like to see return again. So it's pretty good, pretty good. All right, let's talk about Rachel. Rachel, I don't know. We felt like she had potential, but I feel like I don't think I believe that anymore. To be honest, I feel like she kind of blew up her own spot. She was in a position where she really should not have gone home, and Tyler didn't even really have to do much to make sure she went home. So I was not particularly high on Rachel. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I was originally thinking that she was playing really well. I was really excited as to what Rachel was doing. I thought that she was, just laying very, very low, but that she was kind of making friends on all sides of the house, and that was going to prove very well for her. But she just didn't act on any of that, and instead just kind of let her game fall apart. And I feel like that's the problem, is when faced with some sort of adversity, she just crumbled and made a lot of dumb decisions. Whereas, I really wasn't expecting that from her, considering how low key she was playing the entire beginning of the game. I do feel like she was playing a good game, though, and I feel like there were extenuating circumstances that became the reason that she left. If anything, I feel like she was playing great because Bailey felt comfortable with her enough to open up to her and reveal her power to her. So, at that point I was like, wow, Rachel's, really got this. Turns out, everyone trusted Tyler over Rachel. And she just couldn't compete against Tyler. So, I really don't think she's a bad player, and I think if you dropped her into another season, she'd do well. It did kind of seem like people felt like they couldn't quite connect with her sometimes, which was a little strange. But yeah, it's so hard to come up with a final rating, because her gameplay this season was not very good at all, but her gameplay on any other season might have been way better. And it's hard for me now that I just gave Caitlin a 5. Yeah, I'm just gonna give her a 6.
Yeah, I'd probably give her a 6 as well. I think that she probably did fine most of the time. I think this was a little weird. Although I do take your point, Taran, that, people have to survive when they're nominated, and she did not do well when she was about to be nominated. And also she seemed unwilling once again, somebody else who probably could have maybe saved themselves by outing something else, but she was so tied to trying to save both herself and Brent at the same time that she lost sight of what the real goal is. So maybe that's an indictment of her play, but I do think she probably has the chops most of the time to make it far into the game. And I do think she could win if she got to the end. She's certainly charming, likable. And if you believe what Instagram is showing, she'll kiss anybody. So I think that she can do whatever she wants, and she'll probably succeed some of the time. So that's why I give her a 6.
Yeah, I feel like she is a capable player in the same way that Winston is a possible capable player.
Okay.
The difference being that she has game knowledge that Winston doesn't. That she was a fan of the show. I think that she could be a good competitor in some of the competitions, and I think that sort of compensates for her other weaknesses, which average out to about an average player for me. So I give her a 5. The audience, though, even lower than I am on Rachel. The audience gave her a 4. Not very high on Rachel. In terms of would we like to see her back? About 15% of the audience said yeah, they would.
The real Rachel, not the fake Rachel we saw on the Big Brother show, who was a piece of furniture. I want the real Rachel that's fun and charming and feisty. That's the person we thought we were getting, and then she just totally disappeared.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Christina also pointed out that the average price for Rachel was something like $5 or so. So a much higher one, because we were higher on her right up until the point that she left. So
she
did
just
have
left.
Yeah, she did have a higher rating there. 6 people are big Rachel fans. 6 people said Rachel is their favorite
How
player.
in the world does Steve have more fans or as much fans as like so many people? I don't understand it. I mean, Steve's a great guy, but he was on screen for like, what, 2
here's
seconds?
The thing, Melissa, he's like an avatar for people who don't want to pick a gamer. Like he's just the big lovable teddy bear who, we all can agree was a really great guy. I mean, they
just love like Summer of Steve, and they're like, this is hilarious.
Basically, yeah.
Steve had 7, Rachel had 6. There you go. All right. I personally, I don't think I need to see Rachel again, unfortunately.
I probably agree with you.
I wouldn't mind seeing her again, but I'm not going to be like, I really need to see Rachel again. So
hopefully the fact that she realizes how irrelevant she was on this season would cause her to play a lot more aggressive in a second season.
Yeah, like, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing her again, but I'm not like chomping at the bit to see her again. The reason why I prefer to see probably Winston over Rachel is because I do think Winston would play very differently if Brett wasn't there, and I'd like to see it. But Rachel, I feel like we kind of got what she was about, and it like wasn't super thrilling. So yeah.
All right. Well, we'll try to pick up the pace here as we continue down this list of house guests. We're about 2 hours in, guys. This is very comprehensive look back at Big Brother 20. But let's talk about Bailey, our first jury member.
I didn't realize we were going to be rating the Steves and Winstons of the world, but it's cool.
Maybe
it's cool.
If you had actually looked at the form
if I had
that
looked
all
at
of
the
the
form,
audience members
that was the
filled
problem.
out.
If I had just read something that I retweeted, oh my god. Okay.
Let's talk about Bailey. Obviously, we were high on Bailey for a while, and then there just seemed to be a massive crash. Part of that, I'm sure, had to do with, the knowledge of the fact that she just got pregnant. That's definitely something that you need to take into consideration. If you remove that aspect, if you remove Swaggy in general from the whole situation, I feel like retroactively, I am higher on Bailey than I was post the sort of crash of her stock. Christina is pointing out that the average price for Bailey was about $4.83, which that's it was very high and then it got very low. So I don't know. For me, Bailey is a tough one to rate. Brent, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. She's a tough one to rate. I'm looking at her going, I think I trust her. Or here's the thing. Do I trust her most of the time? I think the answer would probably be yes. Could she win a jury vote? I think the answer is yes. But I do feel like that she makes boneheaded game decisions when she gets power. Let's be clear. She was HOH-itis incarnate during the week that she was HOH, and it had nothing to do with the fact that she had a power. She was just raring to go when she got HOH, and she thought she was the queen of the castle, when instead you should probably be thinking of it as just a tool to move you ahead further in the game. So I like her chances overall, but I would be hesitant to buy her going into a season. So I'd probably give her a 5.
All right, Melissa?
Yeah, she's the tough one because I feel like I want to be able to be like, oh, okay, but there were extenuating circumstances. Like, we don't know exactly what's going on. This might be a totally different scenario had that not happened. But at the same time, that's all we have to go off of is her playing this season. So I just feel like she was a little erratic, and she had HOH-itis, like Brent said, and, when confronted or when in an argument with people, she would kind of fly off the handle, whether that's like hormones or whatever, who knows, but I mean, just judging by what we are seeing, that is what I'm seeing. And, also she was very confrontational with people when she didn't need to be. I mean, there were so many different various conversations with people, related to game and non-game things where she would just get super confrontational with the person and not let it go. And like, I feel like that's the exact opposite of the way you need to be on Big Brother. You need to be able to let things go and just, even in your head, you can think about it, but you have to pretend you're cool with all these people so that way they'll keep you around, because people don't want to keep someone around who's pissed off at them. So I just feel like the social aspect of the game was really hard for her, and I feel like that's one of the most important elements. So yeah, I'm not super high on her gameplay. I'm not at all. So I'm gonna have to give her a 4, and I think that it's possible that this all has to do with, her mental state at the time. Who knows? But from what I've seen, that's the way I've got to rate it. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely harder on people who had advantages and blew them. And so that's sort of where I'm at with Bailey. She was in a really great spot. She was the middle person in between level 6 and Faute for a little while. She had a power. She won HOH. She had Scottie as a tight ally. She had Rockstar, who was like deathly loyal to her. Haley was loyal to her. She was in a really good spot, and she just threw it all away constantly, which just does not give me faith that she is going to be capable of doing well in this game. But at the same time, what I saw from her early on when she was not in a position of power, she was halfway decent. So I could see her having a kind of underdog run and doing halfway decently. So I gave her a 4, just like a slightly below average. If she ever gets power, I feel like she's going to blow it for herself. But if the circumstances play out in the right way, then I think that she could do all right. So I gave her a 4. The audience is with me here as well. Bailey got a 4 from the audience. And Bailey got 8 votes for their favorite player. Who is your favorite player? 8 votes for Bailey. And 8%, only 8% said they would like to see Bailey back. I don't think I need to see Bailey back myself.
No. You know what? I'll say this. I would love to see her back, only because of the fact that she is beautiful and feisty, and she's willing to give it to people when she's got something to say, and she's competitive. Let's be clear. She didn't need to win that HOH, but she won it anyway. She's not necessarily going to make the best game decisions, but I would love to see her play again. So, yeah, I'm on board with that.
There you go. Let's talk about Rockstar. I'll just go ahead and say I gave Rockstar a 1. I don't think Rockstar can win the game. I feel like she is, like Steve, outside of the average age range for a general house of players. And I feel like, unlike Steve, she is not good at socializing. She barely talked to anybody outside of her. Even within the alliance she was in, she only talked to just a couple people. Just winning the respect of a jury is going to be very, very difficult. I feel like Rockstar is it's pretty close to as bad as you get on Big Brother, in my opinion. Brent, it sounds like you agree.
I do. I think there's very, very little to see here. I mean, look, she gives me, I guess, some good TV moments. So there's that. But she has no idea how to play the game. If you drop her into most seasons, she's going to make the same mistakes over and over again. I don't think she has a great grasp on strategy as a whole. And she's a very disagreeable person. And the worst part is that she can't keep her disagreeableness to herself. It's one thing if you're going into the diary room bitching about people. But, when you know that somebody's running the house and you'll tell every Tom, Dick, and Harry that person is Palpatine, it's not a good look. So yeah, 1.
I'm very torn on Rockstar, because I feel like I really liked the fact that she had a really good read on the game. I felt like she had a good read on everybody and all the various players. Maybe she didn't know exactly who was in an alliance with who, but she was able to pick out who was in charge and who was working together and who was on their side and who wasn't, and try to influence people's decisions that way. But then, like you said, the problem is that when she doesn't like someone, she doesn't make any effort to get to know them or like them or anything. She just makes a judgment and decides, like, that's that. I'm not going to, there's no way I'm working with that person. There's no way I'm socializing with that person. I'm not going to make nice with that person, which is exactly what you need for Big Brother. I mean, that's like the key, is to make nice with everyone, because they're going to have to vote for you in the end. And so it's a little hard, because I liked her read on the house, and I felt like she
Let's also, like, she had a read once that Tyler was the Palpatine, but then was like, no, Tyler's a wounded. Like, she had a good read, and I think we forget that she had a lot of really bad reads.
Yeah, I think it's also possibly one of those things where it's like she just threw everything out there, and it was like at sometimes she was spot on, but the broken clock is always right twice a day.
Everybody in Falate was like that. You got Fessy over Reality Recap saying the same thing. Well, I knew this and I knew this, but no, you really didn't. Scotty saying the same damn thing. I knew this, I knew this. No, you didn't. There's a difference between, enunciating something and putting it out in the universe and actually going to other people and being able to change hearts and minds, neither of which these people did. So,
that's true.
Bye.
And, the one thing about her is that I did notice that she initially in the season, she was able to bond with a lot of different people who I wouldn't necessarily expect her to be bonding with. Her and Caitlin and Haley were super close in the beginning, and I was very surprised when feeds came on and they were acting like BFFs because I just didn't see those three bonding together at all. So I did think it was pretty cool that Rockstar was able to just like integrate herself in with that group. The problem is that if the person's not, an outcast or a unique personality or whatever, she's going to automatically view them as, uppity whatever, jerks. And that's not what necessarily everyone in level 6 was. So it was frustrating to see her just have absolutely no desire to work with anybody on the other side of the house when I felt like she really probably could have had an in with certain people had she not gone kind of crazy against Brett and everything like that and talked so much crap about Angela. So, I'm going to have to give her a 3.
All right. The audience also gave Rockstar a 3. Higher than Brent and myself, but it's the way things go sometimes. 25 people said Rockstar was their favorite player. So we're getting higher there.
All right.
Okay.
Rockstar has a fan base, but
it'd be interesting to see if the further we go up, if the fans increase, or if there's any that drop significantly.
There are some that are still down there, but for the most part, it starts to increase a bit. However, only 7% said they would like to see Rockstar play again. I would definitely not like to see Rockstar play again. I thought what she gave us this season was great, but I feel like we'd just get more of the same next time, and I don't really need that.
Yeah,
that's true.
All right, let's talk about one of the people that I just mentioned as still being pretty down there, Fessy. Fessy was not the next person voted out, but was the next placement here because Scotty ends up returning to the game. 5 people said Fessy was their favorite player. So
I'm giving Fessy a 2.
There you go.
He was just so dumb about everything, and I was very upset because he was able to win these competitions, and I was like, yeah, go Fessy, and then he'd use it for the complete wrong thing to do, and it was very frustrating to watch. He seems like a nice enough guy, but he just even when people on his alliance were telling him to do certain things, he just wouldn't, and he blindly followed JC, and it just was very upsetting to watch there be absolutely no discerning thought of his own in his own mind, and it was very sad. So
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I feel like that Fessy is the kind of person who's so easy to manipulate that I feel like he's probably going to go far in any season where people are going to pick him up and use him as a possible tool, sort of like a beast mode cowboy. If he could finagle his way to the end, yeah, I do believe somebody like Fessy could win. That's why Taran even took a flyer on him one time in the stock watch, because he thought, hey, the cards fall right, maybe he can win, which is true. But I don't think he has the overall awareness to understand what's really going on in the game. In fact, he's the worst kind of person to play Big Brother, because if you give him even a little bit of attention, he'll do whatever you want. It's same thing with Caitlin and Haley and even JC. Make no mistake, that whole friendship with JC and Fessy was at least partly sexual based. Of course, there's no sexual activity happening between the two, but it's because the flirting and the sort of idolizing and back and forth, almost like a brother kind of thing, where they're of course I'm mixing metaphors here, but the horseplay that's between them that is causing him to say, you know what, you like me and you're giving me attention, so I'm gonna believe you. So that's why I feel like he's not going to succeed on most seasons, but I do think he could win a jury vote, so I'd give him a 2.
I also gave him a 2. And the audience did as well. Straight 2s. For Fessy.
Right.
I feel like we've talked about Fessy quite a bit over the course of the season. Christina says that the average price for Fessy was $3.11, so a little bit higher than our ultimate rating, just because he's always going to have some chance, but it's just never going to be at that high of a chance. I talked about I loved watching Fessy on this season. Do I want to see him back though? No. Again, I feel like it's half the fun with Fessy was watching him go, what's going on? And
he's even taken that away from us by trying to be in on the joke now. Eric asked him a question on reality recaps, what was the time you were most surprised about when the vote didn't go your way? He's got his hat over here going, who flipped? It says who flipped on the bill a bit. He's got to put that on to answer the question as if he's in on the gag now. Girl, please. We were laughing at you, not with you.
Well, what are you gonna do? You gotta own it.
I guess.
So only 5% said they would like to see Fessy back. So not super high there on Fessy. Let's move on to Scottie. Oh, Scottie. He did return to the game. But he just he never really did much with his time in the game, and I'm pretty low on Scottie here. I gave Scottie a 3. I just feel like Scottie is another person. He had so many tools that he could have used and that he didn't use. He had 2 chances in the game and he was evicted unanimously both times. He had so many chances to stay, even the second time. If he had just told JC, if he had campaigned to JC earlier and told JC who his targets were, then JC maybe saves him. But he doesn't do any of those things, and I just feel like I'm having a really hard time finding Scottie's path to the end, despite the fact that his archetype is usually one that does very well. So I gave Scottie a 3. Brent, what do you think?
Look, I didn't enjoy him on my TV. Maybe he could win a jury vote at the end. I'd probably give him a 2. I don't think he's going to succeed in most seasons. I think he's the kind of person who's always going to be looked at as sneaky within the Big Brother house, and he's not able to hide his abilities, unlike somebody like Tyler, who was a super fan of the game and was able to convince people that he was just a dumb surfer bro. I don't think Scottie has that ability. He makes some of the worst strategic decisions within the game. And really, I don't understand why he did it. Also, the fact that he continues to be enamored with Steve and like everything, like so many of his answers came back to Steve in that interview with Eric, to the point where I'm going like, are you even self-aware anymore? Like, do you take no ownership of your own game? Like, the reason you lost isn't because Steve left the game during week 1. The reason you lost is because you played badly, and he doesn't seem to be able to recognize that. So that doesn't give me much hope that he would improve on a future season. So I'll give him a 2.
All right. Melissa?
Yeah, I would give him a 4. There were so many times where I felt like I could see a glimmer of hope in his game, because he would have the right read on people, or he'd, when he joined up with level 6 very briefly, I was like, okay, he could go pretty far with this one. But then he would just take all the work that he's done and just completely destroy it. And which was a little frustrating to watch. He's really good at competition, so I could see him using that to get further in the game. But I honestly think that if he went out the first time and didn't come back, I think we would be a lot higher on him. And I think he would have like a better legacy leaving the game than he does now, because now I think people are like, this guy's a moron. Whereas before it was like, oh, Fessy's a moron. Look what he's done to his one ally. So it's a little, it's kind of sucky for him that he actually came back into the game. But yeah, so I just gotta give him a 4 because, I could see him doing okay in another season. Also, I think the whole Steve thing that he keeps like talking about Steve, I think that has to do with the fact that like there was the whole Summer of Steve thing and everyone was like joking and like saying, oh, that's a cute friendship. And I think he's trying to find some sort of like thing to like hang his hat on as like a good thing as part of his game. Like, oh, we had such a cute friendship. Everyone loves Summer of Steve. I'm going to like, join in on that rather than let people talk about how horrible my gameplay was. The fact that he kept saying that Tyler was his like super close ally and everything, and all that is just insane to me that he like believes that. I don't quite understand it. The fact that he says he has like a really awesome social game, like just because someone says that they're your friend but does nothing to otherwise to indicate that they're a friend doesn't make them your friend just because they said it, which is, I honestly, I don't understand some of his logic. So yeah, I don't know if I want to see him back either.
Oh, hell no. I don't want to see him back. Sorry, Scottie.
Yes,
I didn't know what to do with you this time.
The audience gave Scottie a 4 as well, and 10% said only 10% said they would want him back. 36 people said that Scottie was their favorite player, and I agree. I don't need to see Scottie back. I feel like, I don't know. There are better choices in this archetype, and that would have made better choices all around. So there we go. There's Scottie. Next up is Haley. Haley, an interesting one to talk about, in my opinion. It's a tough call. Haley is another person who I felt like had a lot of potential. I feel like she's also somebody who, give her a couple of years. If she was just a little bit older, maybe, and she came into the game, she might do a little bit better. Again, maybe without a Fessy in the house, maybe she does a little bit better. She had something. She had a social game that was good. She attracted people to her. That's all good stuff. I think that she was hurt by her lack of knowledge of the game. She was hurt by just the lack of a killer instinct in general. She just didn't fight
lack
for
of
things.
confidence in herself, like in of her own instincts. I feel like if we took Dr. Haley and put her in the game instead of game Haley, we would have, or like house Haley, we would have an amazing player. But I think that anytime an outside influence came to her and they were able to always convince her otherwise and convince her to do whatever they wanted, because she didn't have the confidence to stand by what her gut was telling her, or what her opinions were telling her. She just would go with whatever everyone else was saying and not try and rock the boat. And I think that comes with age.
Yeah, to her credit, in her interview on Reality Recaps, she did own the fact that she would probably play better if she was a few years older. In fact, would rather have done that. But of course, you don't get to pick when you're cast on Big Brother. She recognizes her faults for the most part. She did say a few things that were a little bit odd, trying to explain her decisions when she was a hacker. But she also owned her mistakes throughout the season. And I do think, on balance, if she wasn't up against the juggernaut of level 6, I do think that she could have worked her way in. I mean, Angela, Casey have all been honest about the fact that, you know what, I loved Haley. She was great. I mean, they weren't faking that friendship with her. They were faking their alliance with her, and the fact that they would ever entertain anything otherwise to allow her to move forward in the game. They were faking that, to be sure. But their friendship with her was genuine, and I think that if she wasn't up against such an amazing alliance like this, I think that she probably goes far. So I really like her. I'd probably give her a 7, and that's the highest rating I've given anybody so far. I mean, if we're going on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being Dan Giesling, then I'd give her a 7. I think she's very rarely first or pre-jury evicted. I think most people enjoy her. She's gorgeous. She's going to get along with people. People are going to keep her around. She's no drama. She needs to trust herself a little bit more, and maybe with a few years she'd have that.
Yeah. I mean, I think if Faute beats level 6, like they probably should have, I think Haley, JC probably wins the game, but I think if JC doesn't win the game, I think Haley wins the game. I think Haley is the person who is best positioned within Faute to win the game, and I think that she could have, if level 6 hadn't been such, and particularly Tyler hadn't been such a strong.
Yeah. By the way, since we're talking about Haley and Fessy real quick, I just want to talk really quickly about the fact that Fessy was, as I mentioned earlier, bemoaning the fact that he wasn't put up as the choice for the veto during the week that Haley was the hacker. Of course, he doesn't remember the fact that he was, moaning and groaning to people about the fact that how did Tyler end up on the block? Whoever nominated Tyler, they need to die. I mean, that was basically the attitude of the entire house. And he's pissed off about the fact that Haley didn't put him up as the potential to play in the veto competition, because I think he would have clearly won that. But she didn't want to do that because the fact that he said he would take Tyler off, and he seems to forget that part. So not great memories on these two people, and I wish they'd own their shit a little bit more.
Yes. Melissa, did we get a number from you?
I would give Haley a 7.
A 7. Wow.
What did you give her?
I give her 5.
Okay.
I feel like she is a 5, but she is somebody that I think if she was brought back as a returning player, she is somebody that I think could improve a lot. But as a first-time player, which almost all of the Big Brother players are, I think she's a 5. I think that it could go one way, it could go another way. So that's where I have Haley. The audience also gave Haley a 5. So a bit split there in between the 5s and the 7s. Haley gets the first significant number of votes after Caitlin, of course. Caitlin had about 6% of the vote. Haley has about 7% of the vote for who is your favorite player. And 46% said they would like to see Haley return. She is the fourth highest vote getter there.
I'd like to see her come back.
Yeah, I'm not like dying to see Haley back, but I would not mind seeing her. I'd be pleasantly surprised if Haley came back. Okay. So I'd lean toward a yes, but it's not a strong yes. Mm-hmm. So there you go. Let's talk about Brett. Oh, Brett. Brett is somebody. I think Brett is one of the top players this season, in my opinion. I think that he started out fairly average, but he's somebody who is very adaptable. He was able to learn the game on the fly. He was very charismatic. He was cutthroat. I feel like Brett is really. He's really the Paul of the season. And I do think that he's somebody that if he came back, he would also do very well. But honestly, even more so with Paul, I think Brett is a bit more likable than Paul was. I think if Brett makes it to the end, he probably wins the vote. Granted, he might have lost, and we probably would have blamed him for being mean in his goodbye messages as well. But he just resembles Paul even more in that situation. Yeah. So for me, Brett is a 7 here. I have Brett at a 7. I feel like he started the season as a 5 and he worked his way up, and that's really how I see it. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I really liked the way that Brett played. I felt like he was able to integrate himself into many different groups, and people always, even if he got into little arguments or whatever, or even if he was outright jerk to them, they ended up liking him because he's got some sort of charming way about him. And so I really, and also I feel like he is the kind of person who like picks up the game as he goes along, and he's able to really hone in on the skills needed and understand the game. And also the fact that he and JC came this close to being able to flip the script and get the level 6 threesome out of there. I was really impressed by what he was doing, and the fact that he was even entertaining that. I mean, that so many recent seasons we've seen people, not even want to go against their alliance, not even want to entertain that idea because they're loyal and that's all they have. And you have to be open to those sorts of things. And so I really appreciated the fact that Brett was open to that. And it really does say something about a person that they're able to be outright jerks to people and pull like a Dr. Will type thing and get them to think of them as charming and not a jerk. So, yes. Yeah, I really liked Brett's game. I'm kind of torn between a 7 and an 8 right now. But the more I talk about it, the more I feel like I want to give him an 8. Because I do feel like in any season he could, charm people and get people to like him no matter what he does. He kind of seems to be immune to that. I don't know. I'm going to give him an 8 for future seasons.
Yeah,
I'd like to see him back.
I would like to see him back as well. I think he would be fun on a future season. Look, here's the thing about Brett. Like as Melissa pointed out, it is a rare quality to have in an individual to be able to be obviously shitty to someone's face and to still have them like you. And he just has that. And I as I mentioned to Taran a moment ago, I called that early on. Like people were going on about his shitty goodbye messages. And I thought, you know what? If he gets to the end, I think people are really going to like him. They're going to be like, you know what? He's definitely a shit, but he's our shit. So like, I feel like they would get Brett, and I feel like he would have if he would have gotten to the end of the game. Arguably, I do feel like it would have been in Tyler's best interest if he would have let Brett's plan go through, because Brett obviously wanted to take a shot at the girls. Angela won veto that night. If Tyler nominates Casey, gets her out of the game, then I think everybody takes Tyler to the end, and he has a cleaner shot to win. Maybe Brett beats him, but I don't think so. I think Tyler probably takes that.
Really?
I do. But who knows? I'd have to go back and look at it. I think it also would be easier for him to get Rockstar and Bailey's votes. Tyler, I'm talking about specifically, if he's up against a Brett rather than up against a woman and a minority in Casey.
That's true, but I don't think he gets Haley though.
Yeah, maybe not. I have to think about it. But be that as it may, I would love to see Brett back, and I think that he deserves an 8.
All right. The audience gave Brett a 7 with me, so they're back at a 7. Brett does, though, have the second most votes for who is your favorite player at 19%.
I wonder who the number one person is. Oh.
He is, however, the highest vote getter for who would you like to see return, with 76% of the vote. 76% of people said they would like to see Brett return and play again. That is the highest amount of votes, beating even Tyler. So there you go.
Well, it's because he was adaptable. Like, he was able to get to the final 6, realize, you know what, I need to turn on these people. Like somebody like Casey or Tyler, they had no endgame strategy. Of course, Casey won, but I'll still contend she had no strategy. Tyler had no endgame strategy. Brett was like, you know what? We need to remove this piece from the game board. Yes, I'm in an alliance with this person, but I need to get them out of the game. If he's not up against a juggernaut in Tyler in terms of somebody who has social connections within the game, I think his plan probably succeeds there. And most people, aside from the 2 girls in the house, probably support that position. But you have to look at who he was dealing with at the time. Somebody like Tyler, who wasn't about to let that happen. Somebody like Sam, who didn't know where she was half the time. And JC was up on the block. So, girl, bye.
Yeah, and I agree. I would like to see Brett return. I feel like Brett would be really good as a returning player. I think that he was very entertaining. He was good at the game. So, prime candidate.
Yep.
We don't need to talk too much, but next up is Sam.
Can we just move on? Like a 1, like really, it's just a 1. She was terrible.
There were a lot of people that, maybe not a lot of people, but there were some people that were upset at how little we talked about Sam during the stock watch portions throughout the season. But what really is there to talk about in terms of game?
She's a piece to be used by other people. I mean,
she didn't even want to play.
They keep her around at their whim. It's just it's frustrating to me. People are like, "Well, why don't you talk about Sam more?" Well, what's Sam? What's her agency in the game? What currency does she have within the Big Brother game in order to affect change? How has she set herself up for the end run? Has she done any of these things? The answer is no. She couldn't even be loyal to somebody like Tyler. Go ahead, Melissa.
Sam had a good, funny segment or two. The one with JC and her talking about murdering people or whatever and him freaking out. That's a funny segment, but that's about it. She didn't want to participate in the game. She sometimes didn't even want to be there. So it's really, she's not a player. She's not. And if you're not going to even try, then you're going to get a 1 from me, which is the lowest rating, right? You can't give a 0.
Yeah, that's the lowest rating. By the way, I want to ask Taran, like, who are these people? Like Leslie Stahl with President Trump last night when they were talking about climate change, and he said, "Well, people say, who are these people? Like, who are these people that say we're not talking about Sam enough, Taran? I want to know who they are."
I can hold on. I can tell you who they are.
It was a rhetorical question, Taran. Moving on.
There's 20 of them. There's 20 of them. 20
okay.
people said Sam was their favorite player.
Right.
By the way, Sam gets a 1 from me.
She's like an avatar. It's like Steve.
She's like Rockstar. She's somebody who her best bet is to be dragged to the end, but she's bad at even that. And it's hard to get. It's hard to. Just like Rockstar, it's hard to imagine her getting a vote to win in the end. I don't think it's.
You had one job, Sam. You dragged to the end.
Yeah, so a 1 from me. What were you guys on, Sam?
1.
1.
One
from
them.
Talk about
and
it.
don't want to see her back.
The audience gave her a 2. It's hard to get a 1.
Sorry, you're outvoted.
But only she is the lowest vote getter. Only 2% of the audience wanted to see Sam play again. So not really in the cards there. All right, let's talk about Angela. She's somebody who I think hovered around, maybe Christina can help me out here, hovered, I think, around $6, $5 or $6 throughout the season, which is probably where I'd place her ultimately. She made it pretty far, but was she ever going to win the game? Probably not. So that's something to take into consideration. Brent, what are your thoughts on Angela?
I would probably give her a 4. I'd probably give her a 4. And the reason being because I don't think she can win the game. She's just not a person you're going to feel good about voting for. She was pretty cold within the house. Arguably, I think she was pretty cold to Tyler, and that was her showmance. They didn't even like to show their affection for each other. Arguably, for his point of view, it was about the game, but I don't know. I think she's just kind of like that. And there weren't many people who had positive feelings about Angela coming out of the house, to the point where Scottie's going back in the house saying nobody will vote for Angela. And she couldn't even hide it in her goodbye messages. Look, on the positive side, she's capable at these weird comps, that Carnival-esque games that Big Brother tends to have. And she's a no drama person. That's why we called her furniture for the first half of the game. So the, Rob Cesternino strategy of going to sleep and then waking up and winning comps, that's basically what she did. Although I don't know that she did it intuitively. I think it was just something that's part of her character. I don't think that she is naturally conflict oriented at all, and that's not great from a TV point of view, although from the game can be worthy. So I would probably give her a 4, mainly because I don't think she can win, but I think she probably goes pretty far in most seasons.
Yeah, I'd give her a 5. I think she's exactly an average player. I feel like part of why she couldn't win the jury vote is because she was put in a situation where she was encouraged to be mean, and I feel like that's probably not a situation that's as often going to be happening. I don't know. She did make pretty good bonds with some people, but she just ended up burning some of those bonds. I feel like she's a perfectly average player. She's capable in competitions. She's good enough socially. She's good enough strategically. She has the potential to do well. She has the potential to do poorly, and I feel like she did both on the season. So I gave her a 5. Melissa, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. I do think that she was really she has a lot of positives in that she was really good at the competitions. And she won so many competitions and so many HOHs and vetoes and everything. And it was like, if you throw her in a random season, she'll probably win a lot. And I also think that she was ruthless, which I like to see in a player. I like to see people who are willing to cut whoever to get to the end and do whatever it takes, and not really feel remorseful. I like when they're just like, I'm doing it as part of the game, and this is a game, and don't get upset. And I really liked that. The one problem, I guess, is that her social game was a little lackluster. A lot of people didn't like her, and she didn't really have that Brett charm where you could say something mean to someone and then still have them love you because they think you're charming. She didn't have that. And the only reason that a lot of people, she started to kind of melt that whole Ice Queen persona or whatever was because of Tyler. But if you stick her on a random season, she's not going to have that person. She's not going to have the person to melt that Ice Queen persona. So I feel like she would just stay as an Ice Queen, and I don't think that her social game would be really great if she was on a season without Tyler. Not that it was really great anyway, but I think that it would be even worse. So while I do think that she's a good player and I like her ruthlessness, I don't know if I see her doing super awesome on another season, so I'm going to give her a 6.
All right. The audience also gave Angela a 6, so a bit higher than Brent and myself. But she does have 5% of the audience saying that she is their favorite player, and 24% would like to see her come back and play again. I would not like to see Angela come back.
I don't need to see it.
Yeah, like I said.
feel like we understood it. We got it.
And honestly, like the best case scenario for Angela to come back being like with Tyler, I also don't want that to happen. I'd rather see Tyler on his own.
Yeah.
So sorry, but not really in favor of that one.
Yeah, I feel like we already got her whole like storyline, her progression of like, oh, she's this girl who can't open up to people, and she's really closed off, and she's this ice queen, and then oh, she's melted by her exterior is melted by Tyler, and they are together, and they ride off into the sunset or whatever, and like that's the story. But we don't need to see anything further after that part of the story, I think.
Yes, let's talk about JC. JC, very, very interesting player to rate here. I will hopefully be talking to him soon, so that will be interesting. But in the meantime, let's talk about his game. Let's talk about JC's game. We went, or at least I went over JC's entire game in the final morning updates, and he did a lot this season. He really was one of the key players, the key drivers of action throughout the entire season. I think he had some very obvious, glaring flaws, but compared to most of the players we've talked about so far, those flaws are pretty minor. They're obvious to us because of how well he played outside of those flaws. That makes them stick out even more. But I do feel like JC is surprisingly good at this game. The things that he was able to pull off with the votes, with getting Fessy to target Scottie, these are things that we do not see very often on this show. He is capable of some very, very great and wondrous things. I think that is important to point out. And it's also important to point out that JC came very close to winning this game. If he is just 40 seconds faster on part 2 of the final 3 HOH, he could have won the entire game. I mean, I think he claimed that he would have beaten both Tyler and Casey in the final part of the final 3 HOH. If he was playing along, I don't believe him, but it's certainly believable that he could have beaten them. They got a lot of questions wrong, and if he had done that, then he would have been able to probably win the game. I think that the jury was pretty primed to vote for JC to win, so that's something to really consider strongly, and I do. I think that JC is a really good player, and I gave him an 8. High praise of an 8 for me. That's the rating that I gave JC. Melissa, what do you think?
This is so hard. I'm debating between 2 different numbers, but I totally agree with what you're saying. He surprised me so much. He's like, I mean, I was shocked at the way he was able to play because I wasn't expecting it. I thought he was going to get out like first or second. I thought that he was just going to be goofy and erratic and there for laps, but he wasn't going to be a true threat to win the game, and he totally exceeded all my expectations. He was able to convince people of anything. He was so manipulative. He told everyone exactly what they needed to hear at that moment in time, and for not knowing the majority of like the goings on in the house, he was able to get himself so far and position himself so well that he almost won the game, and that's considering the fact that he's terrible at the competitions and he wasn't able to win like literally anything. So I was really impressed with this game, and I'm vacillating between an 8 and a 9 because I was just so impressed, and I think that if you throw him on a random season, I still think people are going to underestimate him. I still think people aren't going to be like, oh my God, this guy, he's a threat. I think they're going to underestimate him, and I think he's going to be able to weasel his way in and convince people to do whatever he wants. I mean, look at the way he was able to convince Fessy and Haley to get rid of Scottie. I mean, it took him 5 seconds to do that? It was insane. So I really think that he really played a great game. So you know what? I'm going to give him a 9.
Yeah, I concur with that. I have no problem giving him a 9. I think he was the best kind of player you can hope for. He wasn't really a fan of the game coming in. He intuitively knew what to do while the game was going on. He has no problem lying bald-faced to people's faces. And not only that, he takes glee doing it when he's in the diary room, which, you have other people in this cast who feel bad. Oh, I couldn't lie to them. I couldn't do that to them. I didn't want to hurt them. No, he'll do anything to get to the end of the game. He'll do anything to get the money. And and he is a very likable presence. During some of the interviews, some people like Fessy were like, "Oh, I don't know if I would have voted for JC." Please stop. You would have voted for JC. We all know it. We could see it on the faces of the people who were in the jury. The one part that that would prevent me from giving him a 10 is the fact that he gets tripped up a little bit by his emotions. Like the fact that he basically was in love with Tyler by the end of the game and was talking about getting an apartment together and you and me till the end. I mean, he would never have considered cutting Tyler, and he probably needed to in order to win the game. Although I know he could have gotten to the end and won the game in this specific game, but I think overall you probably need to cut a player like Tyler and not want to go to the end with them blindly just because you're in love with them. So that would be my one caveat. Other than that, I love this game, and that's why I give him a 9.
All right. About 5% of the audience chose JC as their favorite player, and a good 40% want to see him play again. And I definitely agree with that. I would like to see JC play the game again. I think that he is always going to be entertaining to watch play this game. Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
I'd like to see him back.
He was, I believe, fifth highest vote getter in really the last of the significant vote getters.
What did the audience rate him?
The audience gave him a 7 out of 10. Sorry, I forgot to say that. There you go. The audience gave him a 7. I gave an 8. Those two gave him a 9. Let's talk about Tyler. Tyler, the player of the season, surely. You two both gave JC a 9, so I'm very curious to know where you stand on Tyler. Melissa, we'll start with you.
I love Tyler's game. I thought that he played a fantastic game the majority of the time. I mean, we don't need to say all the praises about Tyler's game. We all know that Tyler was the strongest player throughout the whole game. I do feel, though, like JC's game got better at the end and Tyler's game got worse at the end. I think after he hooked up with Angela, and I mean that in terms of, got together with Angela, I think that I think he kind of let go of the steering wheel at that point and kind of was like, look, I'm in a good enough position. I don't really need to bother. And I feel like, he really didn't need to bother. I mean, he got to the final 2, but he kind of let go all the jury management that he needed to be doing in terms of, he would make all these final 2s with people and then just send them out the door without any sort of hey, sit down talk like Derek would do, hey, look, I'm sorry that it had to come to this, or anything. It was just all right, bye, see ya. And there was no explanation or anything. And as much as I loved, I felt like he performed really well in the speeches at the end. I just feel like it didn't make up for the fact that he didn't connect with people personally right before they went out the door, or even in his goodbye messages, which was a little disappointing. And so, I feel like overall, though, you throw Tyler in another season and he plays amazingly, and because he's got that charm about him. He's got that same sort of Brett kind of thing where people just love him and they want to trust him and they want to hang out with him and be with him. And so I do feel like he could do really well in another season. So I'm going to give him a 9 as well.
Yeah, I'll give him a 9. I think that here's the thing. I think he plays every aspect of Big Brother great. I do think that his endgame needs work, but I overall, I really like it. He did well in getting himself there, and I don't think he's ever targeted by anybody. However, he is a heterosexual male, and he is a young guy, and I do think that he could be done in by the charms of a really hot woman. I mean, he's basically looking at Angela with his tongue hanging out like a dog when they haven't eaten for 3 days. With, how overjoyed is he that he's now with a fitness model? So that would give me pause in terms of his decision-making ability. Let's remember, he threw the final for veto because he couldn't bear making the decision to evict Casey or Angela. Again, I go back to the fact that you broke all these other final 2 deals and had no problem doing that. Why was this such a big deal? Indicates to me that there's something amiss there. So I can't give him a perfect score, but I'll give him a 9.
All right. Well, I gave Tyler a 9 as well. a 9. I feel like it's gonna be a rare rating from me, but I do feel like Tyler is one of the better players to have played Big Brother. We'll get into that a little bit in just a bit, but he controlled the entire game. I mean, you really just need to listen to my morning update where I went over Tyler's game. He played very well. We're going to harp on the small things that he got wrong, but he got so much right, and not only right, but just exceedingly right. He did so well throughout the entire game. Really, it's hard to find true faults. When you do find them, it's like, you could have been perfect, but you weren't. And most people aren't. So it's a 9 from me because he's not quite perfect. Nobody is, but he's just a little bit behind as perfect as you can get in Big Brother. And that's a 9 from me. So there you go. The audience also gave Tyler a 9. Straight 9s. Straight cool. 9s for Tyler.
That's a good game.
Unsurprisingly, got 50% of the vote for favorite player. In this pie chart, there's a big whole half of it is Tyler, and then there's a small chunk that's Brett, and really the rest of it's split up with some of these other people here. 70% of people said they would like to see Tyler return. I agree. I would also like to see Tyler return in an all-star season, of course.
Me too. Only in an all-star, not in a Paul type scenario.
Yes. All right. Only person left here is Casey, our winner of Big Brother 20. Let's talk about Casey. Brent, I want to start with you. How do you feel about Casey?
I feel relatively great about Casey. I mean, look, I think she checks all of the boxes of a replacement plus Big Brother player. Does she have ability to win competitions? Yes. Is she a likable person? Yes. Does she get into fights with other house guests? Not really. Does she have the ability to win a jury vote? Yes. So what's missing? It's basically a sense of ownership over her own game. I mean, I feel like she won Big Brother in part due to someone else. It was Tyler. Tyler's machinations on the Big Brother game itself were the cause of Casey winning, not her own. Having said that, if she came back in a season, dropped into a random season having never played before, I think she would really do okay. I think most people are going to like her and gravitate to her. Look at her life on the outside of the house. Everybody wants to be her friend. Of course, I know she has $500,000, but still, I do think that people really enjoy Casey's presence overall. And as I said, she can obviously win a jury vote because, hey, she just did. So I'd give her an 8, and I feel really good about it.
All right, Melissa.
Yeah, I agree with Brent. I'd give her an 8 as well. I think her social game was really, really great. It carried her through the majority of the way. And then her competitions were, unparalleled. She won so many vetoes. It was impressive. And I think if you drop her into another season, she would win a bunch of competitions and do really well socially. So I don't think that's a fluke. I think that she would do that over and over again. Do I think that she has the same sort of strategic mind that maybe Tyler or JC have? No, I don't think so. But in some situations in Big Brother, it doesn't really matter. So I do think she played well. Do I think she played as well as? Do I think that her skills as a player and her gameplay are as good as Tyler and JC if dropped into a random season? No, I don't think so, because I do think that she would probably, imagine if she picked someone as her final 2 person who she's going to remain loyal to the entire time, who ends up being, a wild card player like a Swaggy or, a Caitlyn or something like that. I mean, she could have gone out way in the beginning, but because she hitched her wagon to Tyler, she was able to go really far. And maybe that's on her. Maybe she is able to just really read people really well and just pick out Tyler, but you never know. So it's possible that she would do really great in another season. It's possible that she wouldn't. So that's why I'm not as high on her as Tyler and JC.
Yes. Well, in general, I seem to be a little more conservative with my rating, so I want to preface.
Yeah, I was curious about what you would say about her. Yeah.
I was really hoping that one of you would break this ice first, but I am not as high on Casey. I gave her a 6. I feel like she is slightly above average. I feel like that's where I place Casey. I feel like that's where I would have placed her going into the game, and I don't think she showed me anything in the game that changed my opinion of her going in. I thought that that she was going to be a loyal, steadfast member of an alliance, and that's exactly what she was. And I worried that she wouldn't have a killer instinct, and she didn't have a killer instinct. So a 6 is exactly where I would have placed her. I think that she is going to do better than the average player going into any random season of Big Brother because she is so generally likable. She's loyal. She's steady. Like I said, all of those things. But, you know, I don't think she's going to be like a high percentage winner. As Melissa points out, I think that she needs to be in the right circumstances. She needs to be on the winning side. If she was on the other side, I don't think she would have done I don't think she would have done well. And I don't think she was capable of flipping the power structure around in order to make herself do well. I think that she was entirely reliant on the people around her to make it as far as she did. I don't think there's anything that she could have done on her own to improve her standing. And that's fine. That's still better than the average player, in my opinion. But not exactly like top tier. Like, she has no amount of agency that's going to propel her forward in most circumstances, in my opinion. So I had her at a 6. That's where I have Casey. The audience, again, just about in the middle here. The audience gave her a 7. 7 for Casey, our winner of Big Brother 20. And she got, I believe, 35 votes for favorite player, which I think was 1 vote less than Scottie. And then 7% said that they would like to see Casey return and play again. I gotta say, I'm with the audience on that one. I don't know if I would need to see Casey play again.
Yeah, I don't need to see her play again. I think she played the exact same game again.
I'd love to see all winners come back in an all-winner season. I would like to see her come back. In general, if I have to choose between no winners and Casey, I would choose Casey. I like to see the winners come back always, but as a winner, I would choose other winners that I'd like to see back before I saw Casey back. That's how I see that. All right, there you go. We got ratings for all the players now, and if any of these players do return, we can look back at the ratings that we gave them and look at their chances going forward, and hopefully it will help inform you if you want to do rankings. It'll hopefully inform us if we want to do rankings in the future. We'll see. But there are a few more questions to answer before we wrap this up. Like, what do you think is the primary cause of Tyler's loss? We just gave Tyler a 9. Casey, closer to like a 7 average. So why is it that Tyler lost and Casey won? What do we think Tyler did wrong, or that really just was the cause of Tyler's loss? I asked this question of the audience, and I said, what do you think was the primary cause? Because obviously it's a mixture of all of these things. But what was the primary cause of Tyler's loss? And I gave 3 options here because it's hard when you're asking the audience to do something that's easily tallyable. The first option I gave was jury management. Jury management was the primary cause of Tyler's loss, meaning the answers he gave in the jury questioning, his handling of like the Bailey situation, just his relationship in general with people like Sam and Scottie. These are reasons why he lost. Those things are all contributing toward why he lost. But was it the primary cause? That's what I was asking. Second option, strategic error, like throwing the Final Four veto, the order that he evicted people in, taking certain people to the end. Was it strategic error that cost him primarily the loss? Or was it the third option, luck, meaning anything beyond his control, like the jury format, the questioning, the 9-person jury, the way that the comps played out, like some of the crapshoot ones, just the fact that there were a ton of ball competitions, that was very unlucky for Tyler. Lots of the cast as a whole, the fact that there's a 9-person jury plus there was a cast where there was a person who was definitely not going to vote for a straight white guy over Casey. Lots of things beyond his control. Was it luck that was the primary cause of Tyler's loss? Very interested to find out what you guys think, and then tell you what I think. So, Melissa, what do you think? What would be your answer here?
It's tough because my answer would be a combination between jury management and strategy. Because
but it's a primary. The question is, what's the primary?
I'll pick the primary. Hold on. I'll pick it. Don't worry. No, I mean, yeah, the jury management part of it is, I don't think it's like a bitter jury type thing. I feel like last year with Paul, it was like, it's definitely jury management. He mishandled that. The jury was bitter. Like, yeah, it's all that. That's what it is. But here, I do think Tyler could have done better with the jury management in terms of when people were heading out the door, he kind of just let them go out the door, even though he had all these final twos with people. I think he should have sat them down like Derek used to do and be like, look, I'm sorry you're going, like have a little one-on-one with them before they leave, get them to like you and make sure you're cool with them. And then in your goodbye messages, really lay it on thick that you loved them, but they had to go. They were too good strategically, or whatever you have to say, whatever like BS thing you have to tell them in order to make them feel good about themselves. Cause that's really what people want. And so I do think he could have done better with that. But honestly, I don't think any of that matters if he changes the boot order. I think if he gets down to the end and it's him and Sam, I really think that he runs away with it. I think that it really comes down to, why did he want to go to the end with Casey when Angela was known as being hated in the jury? Like, I don't know why he stuck with that final two with Casey instead of, he didn't seem like there was a problem cutting any other final twos he had. So it's weird to me that he was so insistent on taking Casey to the end. And I think, honestly, that if the boot order had changed, I think he would have won. So I would say strategic error is the number one reason.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah. If you want to talk about that, I think there's a little bit of everything. You can look at Luck and say, oh, well, he didn't have as much time to explain all his answers. And if he had more time, having said that, you always know in Big Brother, it's a tight finality. You're never going to have what Dan had in Big Brother 10, where he had 2 hours to talk to people. It's quick moving. Even Dan has lamented that. That was the change in 14. Jury management, I guess there's an element of that there. But these people, by and large, they did like Tyler. Even people that were vehemently voting against him, they said that they enjoyed Tyler in the house. He was a cool guy, and they certainly respected his game. It all comes down to me to strategic. As I mentioned before, the decision to throw the Final Four veto is just so foreign to me, looking at somebody who played such a cutthroat game in Tyler and took joy in it too. Remember, evicting Brett. This is being 2 steps ahead. This is being 1 step ahead. I mean, he reveled in getting it over on people. I mean, Swaggy's evicted and he puts one over on them again. And he's like, it's fun being king in the Big Brother house in the diary room. So to me, it is inexplicable why he decided to do that. It's like all of a sudden he became human for a moment, Taran. He needed to be more of a robot in order to succeed in that moment. Just win the comp, cut Casey, take the money at the end, and say, girl, bye. He wasn't able to do that. It was a strategic error on his part. Not only that, but looking at Casey as a potential final two a person to even allow that to be a possibility. Remember, he could have gotten rid of Casey at final 6 if he allows Brett's game to go through. I mean, look, let's assume he goes ahead and does that. He lets Brett in his ear. He puts up Casey. Casey's evicted. And look, I know people are like, well, Angela wouldn't have trusted him at that point. Please, he could have smoothed things over with Angela he could have done it ahead of time or after. He could have. I mean, where's Angela going in the Big Brother house if she doesn't have Tyler? Sit down with that. There was a way for him to get Casey out of the house if he wanted to, but instead he just said, you know what? I don't want to do that. I want to take her to the end. He fell in love with this Derek Cody game of picking somebody on day 1 and going all the way to the end of the game with him. And the worst part, as I mentioned before, is that he had all of the information in the world. Scottie's coming back from jury going, everybody hates Angela. Oh, people love Casey, though. They love Casey. And what does he do? I want to take Casey to the end of the game. I just can't explain it, folks. I don't know. It's like I watched somebody else play the last 10 days of Big Brother than the guy who played the first 87 days of Big Brother. And it's infuriating for me. So it was strategic error, and there's really not a question about it. That was the primary cause.
All right. Well, the audience agrees with you guys. 41% said that strategic error was the primary cause of Tyler's loss. However, I think it's luck. I really do. I feel like if we look at what are the smallest things that we can change to make Tyler win the game, I think the top 5 to 10 answers are all things that were out of Tyler's control. Just small little minor changes, like the old jury questioning format. If the jury hadn't been sequestered after the roundtable, if Haley had a chance to talk with Fessy about her changing feelings toward Tyler,
that's always how it is, though.
But that doesn't. But that's still different than how it used to be, and that doesn't mean it's out of Tyler's control. Like there's nothing he can do to change it, right? Like just because it is that way doesn't mean just because he has the knowledge that it exists doesn't mean that it's not unlucky for him that he has to face it, right? So if Haley had voted before Fessy, maybe she is able to indicate to Fessy like, hey, you should vote with me. I changed my mind based on what I heard, and then Fessy goes, oh, maybe I should also change my mind, and he then votes for Tyler. That's extremely unlucky for Tyler that he didn't get a chance for that to happen. If Haley had really had a chance to talk to Fessy at all prior to the vote, if Sam had been allowed to quit the game before at any of the points that she tried to quit the game, then America gets a vote and Tyler wins. If Tyler had won the tiebreaker question in the final part of the final 3 HOH, Scottie claims that was the reason why he voted Casey, because Casey won the final 3 HOH. Is that the truth? I don't know, but it was still a tiebreaker question, which is pretty luck based. Casey was 14 or 13 away from being over on that question. If Casey hadn't won the competition that sent Fessy home, Fessy claims that was the reason why he voted for Casey to win the game. Branching off of that, if Tyler hadn't been picked to play in the veto, or if he had been picked to play in that veto instead of Casey, then Casey couldn't have won that competition, and Tyler might have won that competition. Fessy might have gotten sent home by Tyler, and then maybe Fessy votes for Tyler. Just the fact that in general that there were so many ball competitions as opposed to the normal kinds of competitions. If Fessy hadn't screwed the battle back up, which he should have won, then maybe he's evicted in a different competition, and maybe he has less respect for Casey. If that veto had a different outcome in general, if the final 4 veto had been days competition like it almost always is, then Casey likely would not have won, and then she likely would have been sent home in that particular instance, and at that point Tyler probably wins the game. There's so many tiny little bits of things, tiny little changes that you can make that makes Tyler win the game. And that's why I feel like it's really, this is different than last season when I would have said that, like, I'm finding it like, what are the things that could have changed it to make Paul win the game? Like a lot more things that were in his control, right? Like he has to do a lot more. He has to do a lot more jury management. He has to change the way he plays. He has to change his goodbye messages, so on and so forth. And I'd say that was a lot more down to jury management than it was to luck. But I really feel like Tyler was in a position where he had a lot of situations that had to go in a certain way in order for him to lose. Does this make Tyler's game any better? Absolutely not. That is not what I'm saying. Tyler still did have a lot of strategic error. He, in throwing that Final Four veto, I feel like he's really, really messing up. And he's essentially, what he does in throwing that veto is he is giving more power to luck. Because if he throws that veto and Angela wins the veto, then he wins the game. If he throws the veto and Casey wins the veto, he then loses the game. So it's like, that's what I'm saying in terms of the strategic error cost him like 16 percentage points, but it still came down to luck more than anything else that cost him the game. And I understand that this is difficult to hear. Nobody wants to hear about luck, and it sounds like I'm defending Tyler by saying like, oh, he got so unlucky. But that's really not what I'm saying, because I feel like we often underestimate just how powerful luck is in the game of Big Brother. And that's really the point that I'm trying to make here, is that I really do feel like there are so many factors that contribute toward the outcome of the game, and I think it's important to point out that there are all of these little things that contribute, and I do think that luck was the primary cause, followed by strategic error, which I think was definitely a lot more of a factor than jury management, and that is my spiel on that whole situation.
I also think that it's interesting. I mean, it says a lot that we could pretty much point to any of those things and be like, this is the reason why, and we could have like a legitimate argument for it, because that just goes to show how different this season is from the previous seasons where we were all like, oh, it's a bitter jury for sure. This is exactly why this person lost. And it was easy to kind of see why people voted for who they voted for and what the person could have done differently. In this situation, it could be anything, and we could really point to anything as the reason why Tyler lost. So I think it's interesting that it's not as cut and dry as it was.
Yeah. So that, it's just, it's very interesting to analyze here. Obviously, as I mentioned, the audience said 40% or 41% strategic error. I was actually really surprised. 37% said luck. They thought luck was the primary cause, and only 22% said jury management. So there you go. Wasn't expecting that myself, but that's how the audience voted. So another question that I asked was the jury bitter? That was something that a lot of people have been talking about. Is this jury a bitter jury? So I asked, was the jury bitter? And if so, who do you think voted bitterly? Bitterly, that's a word, right?
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Melissa, we'll start with you. Do you think that there were bitter jurors here?
I think it's possible that there were a couple jurors who based it off of personal reasons, but I don't think that people. I don't think it was a bitter jury overall. No, I don't think it was a bitter jury.
Brent?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was a bitter jury overall. I would say Scottie and Bailey were probably the two biggest offenders of being a bitter juror. I think that Scottie, for reasons I elaborated on before, and I think Bailey, look, I go back to the fact that she got what she wanted from Tyler. She went out of the house saying, Tyler owes me an apology. And he didn't even know she said that. And he still started his thing with Bailey. I owe you an apology. And she basically looked at him like he was, like stuff on her foot or something. I mean, like, she couldn't be bothered to even give him the time of day. So that indicated to me that she was a little bit bitter with him. And I was a little perturbed with the fact that she wouldn't give it up to him, considering that he didn't know that that's what she needed from him. And he still did. He knew, I need to do this in order to have a chance to get her vote. So I would probably say those two. I would also, for people who say that Rockstar voted bitterly, he was never getting her vote to begin with. I don't think she voted bitterly. I think that she was always going to vote for the person personally that she wanted, and it's not a bitter thing with her. It's just that's not the kind of voter that she is. So I wouldn't put her in that camp necessarily. But Scottie and Bailey, I mean, Scottie, I'm the most disappointed by. Again, super fan. He says not a super fan because he doesn't like to say that, but a fan of the game. Supposedly respects it. Tyler ran the game up, down, and sideways, and he still can't give him the vote. Instead, he gives it to someone, as I pointed out in my little live tweet of Eric's interview with Scottie. He mentioned Steve like 5 times the amount of times that he mentioned the person that he gave his winning vote to in Casey. He didn't give a shit about Casey's game. He didn't care about it. He didn't have a relationship with her, and yet he still voted for her in the end. That was a disappointment for me. So those two I would probably call out for being bitter.
Yeah, only 15% of the audience said it was not a bitter jury. So a lot of people did think that there was some bitterness here in this jury. 75% said Scottie was a bitter jury member. I've got to agree with that one. 60% said Sam was a bitter jury vote. Definitely can concur with that one.
Yeah.
55% said Bailey was a bitter jury vote. Let's take it or leave it for me. I don't know if I'd necessarily call her bitter, but I don't know if she really went out of her way to try and vote for the better player.
She did not.
Yeah.
She didn't want to hear anything Tyler had to say.
Yes. 31% said Rockstar was a bitter jury vote. I don't know. I think she had her views.
She just doesn't give a shit, people. Yeah. Come on.
26% said Fessy voted with a bitter jury vote. Nobody said that any of the other jurors voted with a bitter. Anyone that voted for Tyler was not bitter, according to the audience.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at somebody like Brent, who actually got humiliated by Tyler in the Big Brother house. I mean, he put all of his eggs in the Tyler basket. Tyler knew it. He knew what his plan was. Right up until that veto was won and played during the veto ceremony, Brent still thought his plan was going to go through, and instead Tyler made him look like an ass on national television in front of the double eviction. And he still went up there and put Tyler's key in the box. That says a lot to me, and I was really pleased to see that.
Yes, and so I also asked, do you have more respect for jurors that make an effort to vote for the better player? So this is something that, obviously, like, the audience seemed to enjoy the downfall of Paul, where the jury voted against Paul despite the fact that they thought he was the better player. And I do feel like that may have had some amount of influence on some of the jury members like Scottie. So I wanted to know, because this is certainly how I feel, but I wanted to know if the audience agreed. Do you have more respect for jurors that make an effort to vote for the better player? 93% said yes. We do. We have a lot more respect for jurors.
Yeah, I feel like that's true with an asterisk. Like, I think, look, most seasons, I think most people are going to say that. And if Paul had won last season, I think we'd all understand. The problem was Paul became so radioactive that it became even impossible for someone like me or Melissa to really support him at the end. And Melissa, I can't remember if you wanted Paul to win there at the end or not, but I certainly didn't want him to win, even though I knew he was the better player. I just didn't want him to have the money. But most seasons, I think that most people in their right minds will want to vote for the best player, and we support the people that want to vote for the best player. I mean, somebody like Haley, who switched her vote at the finale, who maybe was going to vote for Casey and decided, you know what, I think Tyler really played the best game here, and that's what I need to do. I mean, like, I'm singing her praises, and there wasn't much to sing about Haley. So I feel like that's probably mostly true most of the time.
Maybe I should also ask, do you have more respect for podcasters that make an effort to want the better player to win?
Well, I think part of it's in the phrasing of the question, too, because if you ask it like, well, do you have more respect for podcasters who can be a little boring and monotonous, or do you like the feisty ones who bring the tea? Then who would you like then? I think like maybe I'd get more numbers.
Well, obviously, I'm the feisty one and you're the boring one.
Definitely.
You need to attach the name there.
Definitely.
All right. So I was honestly a little bit surprised. I felt like more people would be on the side of no, we like our bitter jury members. But we have a good audience, I think.
I wish you could have asked it last season to see how many people would answer that question.
I would have loved to see how the numbers might have changed.
I wanted.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, last season, I wanted Paul to win because I did think he played the better game. And this season, I wanted Tyler to win because I did think he played the better game. And I was really impressed with Haley, changing her vote and going against the Faute grain, because it did seem like they were kind of like, okay, this is what we're doing. We're not voting for Tyler. We're voting for, Casey. And I liked the fact that she was like, you know what? I don't care what everyone else is doing. I'm just going to vote for who I think played the best game, and really tried to ferret out who played the best game. And I told her so at the wrap party. I told her, I really appreciate the fact that you were willing to go against your own alliance and vote for yourself who you thought played the best game. And she said, yeah, honestly, I really just wanted to vote for who I thought played the best game. And that's the way I voted. And I told her, like, I'm a huge proponent of that. I really, really loved that you did that. So, I like it when jurors try and vote for the best player. And I especially like it when jurors vote for someone who was against them throughout the game, or who even who they hated throughout the game. But if they thought they played a better game, I liked it when they can put personal aside and vote for the person that they think played the best game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
There you go. I also asked, where does Casey rank as a winner? Now, this is a hard question to ask in the format that I was asking it. I basically had you choose a number, 1 through 19. We will definitely at some point do another winner rankings, and at that point I will have you place each person, but I don't have to make you rank each winner in order to rank Casey, so I just have you pick a number, which is kind of difficult because you don't have a list of winners in front of you and you don't know what your general rating is. So we're just getting a general sense of where you might place Casey in the winner rankings. The audience placed Casey at around 11th as the winner. Just lower half.
I'd say about that. Yeah, I think that's probably about right, actually. I would probably put her in there mainly because I don't think she had a lot of direction intuitively on her own game. It was led by other people, specifically Tyler. But having said that, she is a useful alliance member, and she's somebody who I think engenders trust within the game, and I think that would be replicated in a future season. So she's not someone who's going to be an obvious threat to people, and she, I think, overall played a really good game for somebody with her specific abilities. So I would probably have her at the upper, or the I guess the bottom 2/3 or whatever, around 11 to 13, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I had her at 14. I feel like that's probably where I'm going to keep her. Obviously, the bottom 3 being what they are, then Adam and Josh, and then Casey. And the people that she's kind of in contention with, people like Drew, but I felt like Drew, he'd cut Diane. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
He was able to make that move. Lisa was definitely more. She had definitely had more agency throughout the season, and she, did a very good job in certain respects. Maybe Steve is somebody that other people might put ahead of her. Or
tired of talking about Steve. Oh, you mean that?
but people know my thoughts on Steve. I feel like he played a pretty good game. Ian is probably the closest you might get, where he is taking somebody to the end where he might lose against them, but he kind of wasn't going to lose against them. But he was also very good at competitions. He also didn't have a lot of agency in the game. Ultimately, I have more faith in Ian to win competitions than I do Casey, just because he's better at the competitions that more often happen than Casey's ball competitions. So I went with Casey over Ian there. Ian's probably number 13 for me. So that's really where I have it. I couldn't find another winner that I would place below her. And that's how I ranked that. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd say she's like a mid to lower mid tier winner. I'm not sure exactly who's where right now, but like without looking at a list, but I think she's like mid-tier to lower mid-tier, just like kind of you guys said, but I might be a little higher on her than you guys are. So
there you go. We'll hopefully do a full winner rankings at some point. I don't know if we need one yet, but maybe in a bit, maybe in a couple seasons. Who knows?
And if Tyler had won, would he be top tier?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I did say that if Tyler won, I thought he had the potential to be a top 3 in this sort of Derek tier, potentially above Derek. Knowing more about Tyler's game, I think that is completely out of the question. I said that the best case scenario, he wins almost unanimously. Everyone was always going to vote for him. He didn't make any mistakes. So that did not happen. He did not win. And he did make mistakes. So if Tyler had won, I would have probably placed him below Andy at number 5 as the 5th best winner, probably above Hayden, but not by that much.
I think it was in the question throughout the season, like, could he be up there with like Dan, Will, Derek kind of combo? But I think had he won, the way it all unfolded, I don't think he would be up there. I think he'd still be in like the top, but I don't think he'd be like the upper echelon top.
Yeah. You agree with that, Brent?
No. Are you talking about Tyler?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he had won. Yeah, if he had won, I would probably have him in the top 6 somewhere. I'd probably have to sort out exactly where, though. I'm not really sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had people asking if there were people that placed ranked Casey as the number 1 winner. Just quickly scrolling through here, there are a lot of people that put her number 2. There's one. Somebody put her as 1. There you go.
You're insane. Stop watching our podcast now.
That's a little wild, a little out there.
So that's where I would have put Tyler, but he didn't win. Instead, he was a player who didn't win.
Oh, yeah. Wow, was he?
So, where do we rank him as one of the best players to never win? That's a question that I asked, with, of course, an option being that he's not one of the best players to never win. Only 5% of the audience said he's not one of the best players to never win. So, 95% think he is one of the best players to never win, at least in the top 10. And I just general placings here because there's not even a set number that you can put. But I said, is he the best player to never win? Is he in the top 3, top 5, or top 10? Melissa, where'd you put him?
I think he's definitely in the top 5. I think. I don't know if he's like way up there, because I do think that that he got all the way to the end and yet he didn't win. I feel like and he made some mistakes. So I feel like there's a difference between Danielle Reyes, because she gets to the end, but the format is different. So it's like, I just feel like it's hard to compare. But so I would say for sure she should have won had the format been the same. So she's one of the best players to never win. But I don't know if I feel that same way about Tyler. So I do think that Tyler is up there. Don't think he's the best player to never win.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Mainly because, you're looking at, okay, well, what do you need to do to win Big Brother? You need to get to the end. Hello, he did that. Danielle Reyes did that. She knew what the rules of the game were coming into Big Brother. He knew what the rules of the game were coming into Big Brother. He got himself to the end of the game, and he was rejected by a jury of his peers, albeit 5-4, but still rejected. I look at somebody else like Vanessa, who ran that season top to bottom, and Johnny Mac's question about teeth ended up ending her game. I mean, that to me was the definition of luck that ended somebody's game. She did everything she could except win that competition. If she does, she wins going away. So I would always have somebody like Vanessa who didn't get a chance to be evaluated by a jury ahead of somebody like Tyler, who got the chance but just made errors along the way to where they made it a choice where they were rejected by the jury.
Well, see, that's actually why I wanted to talk about luck, because I think it plays into this ranking when we were comparing him to players like Danielle and Vanessa. Because, yes, Vanessa, when you talk about getting to the end, it's a lot more obvious how luck is involved. She had what was essentially a 50-50 shot once it was down to her and Steve in the final part of the final 3 HOH. 50-50 chance, she flipped the coin, she didn't get it. She lost the game. But that 50% chance is the only thing. That's the only change that I can see. If there are other changes along the way, I think she always comes down to that 50% chance. I think she never gets a higher percentage than that, no matter what she changes, because there's always one person in the final 3 that's not going to take her. And so there's no other move that she can make. She's stuck at that 50%. Whereas I can think of a whole host of things that could have changed the outcome for Tyler. It's harder to see how luck is involved when it's a jury vote, because you think, well, the jury is completely in control of their vote. But as I mentioned, there are so many things that could have changed, so many tiny things that could have changed just one vote, and then Tyler wins the game. Or could have changed who he's sitting next to in the end, and he could have won the game. That, to me, means that Tyler was in a better position. He was not in a locked 50-50 shot. He was in a spot where it was like, well, if this 50-50 thing had gone, or if this 50-50 thing had gone, if just one of any of these 50-50 things, or even 60-40, or even 80-20 things had gone his way, then he would have won the game. And so that's where I see all of that luck coming into play. And that's why, ultimately, when I thought about it, and it did take me a long time to think about it, because Tyler versus Vanessa, I do think they're very close, led me to put Tyler over Vanessa. I do think that he is in the top 3 of the best players to never win, but I don't think he is the top, because that's Eric Stein. Let's be real. All right. There we go. All right. We got 7 minutes until it's 3 hours and 30 minutes of a podcast. So let's answer a couple questions here. We had one from Maureen who wanted to know. Sorry, I forgot to tell you the results of the audience poll. 10% said he's the best player to never win.
Yeah.
40% said he is top 3 best players to never win. So 50% of the audience thinks he is in the top 3, essentially. Then 30% said he is top 5. So ultimately, about 80% of the audience thinks that Tyler is at least in the top 5 of the best players to never win the game. So there you go.
Okay. Good to know.
All right. Maureen wanted to know, how high would you rate Level 6 as a dominant alliance? Is Level 6 one of the most dominant alliances ever? Because I kind of think that they might be the most dominant alliance ever. This is something that we kind of talked about on the finale podcast, but with some more time to think about it, I wanted to know what you guys thought. Is Level 6 the most dominant? And I know there's people already calling recency bias, but I can't think of an alliance that worked so effectively to just dominate their way to the end and completely destroy the other alliance in a situation where they didn't even have to rely on competitions. I honestly can't think of another alliance that did that so effectively. I don't know. What do you think, Melissa?
Yeah, I mean, I also think that I think that it's tough to say like, oh, the most dominant alliance, because alliance could mean two people.
Right.
Alliance could mean, you know.
I forgot to qualify. This is an alliance of like more than like 3 or more people at least.
Yeah. So like for an alliance, a large alliance, to make it pretty much almost intact all the way to the end, I think that's very impressive. And I do think that they. I do think that they're probably one of the most dominant, like larger scale alliances. And because it's hard for me to think of other larger scale alliances besides like the Brigade.
I really think it's the Brigade.
Really, all
and
I can think
Level
of.
6.
Yeah. I mean,
and I feel like Level 6 faced a lot more adversity than the Brigade. I feel like the Brigade didn't have to contend with another side. Like there was a side of the house that was against Level 6 that they had to deal with. But the Brigade never really had to face that kind of adversity.
Yeah, I do think that they probably are up there in some of the more, or as one of the most dominant alliances.
I mean, I think obviously they are. I think it's really telling that they were so cohesive as a unit that they didn't even throw each other under the bus when they had the opportunities, maybe to even save themselves. They were really fighting for the alliance rather than themselves, which I guess is more an indictment of them as a player, but not an indictment of the alliance specifically. I will say also too, it's infuriating their competition. You listen to somebody like Fessy who's talking about, well, I was trying to figure out who flipped like during the Brett and Rachel vote, and I was like, okay, if it's not Tyler, or if it's not Haley, then maybe it's Tyler, maybe it's JC. Hello, like you knew who didn't vote with you. Angela, Casey, Brett, or I know he was up for eviction, but those people on the other side of the house, they were voting against you. Why were you not worried about them? So in some ways they were benefiting from the fact that their competition was so utterly terrible in Faute, but I would still probably put them above the Brigade, mainly because of their cohesiveness as a unit and ability to move together and completely decimate their foes. And I would agree with Taran that there was no other side of the house in Big Brother 12. It was just Brendan and Rachel. Basically, everyone was against Brendan and Rachel, and once they were finally out, it was too late for anybody to do anything about it.
Yeah. I really, I'm willing to take any challengers if you feel like there's a better alliance, but I can't think of one that formed day one. It had a bunch of people in it that faced adversity, that didn't rely on competitions to make their way to the end. I can't think of a better alliance. So there it is. Jesse wanted to know, of all the things that were not within Tyler's control, what is the biggest factor that, if changed, would have led to a Tyler win? My answer to this is that Final Four veto. I think that if the Final Four veto had been days, like it almost always is, I think that Tyler wins the game. I think that that is the biggest factor outside of his control that influenced his loss. Do you guys have a better answer than that?
I think that's probably pretty true. I mean, if you're actually taking into consideration the fact that you think that, luck involves the amount of time he gets to be questioned by the jury, I think even if he has just a few more minutes to explain his stuff, I think that he probably can turn one vote there. But he didn't have that chance. So I might lean more towards that. But I do take your point that it's usually days at Final Four, and it wasn't here. Having said that, Casey performed really well in terms of, mentally remembering stuff. Aside from part 2 of the final HOH, I think she might have been somebody who could have won that. So I don't even know if that would have helped him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be, obviously it's not a guarantee that Casey goes out there, but I think that obviously there was a much better chance that obviously JC could have, or actually if JC won it, it would have been fine.
Yeah,
that Angela could have won it.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it would have given him better odds, but not necessarily a guarantee.
Okay.
Let's see. Lan wants to know, was it me or were the competitions really uninspired this year? I feel like that's something that we didn't talk about, but I agree.
Well, I think it's tough after watching Big Brother Canada and being like so impressed with, blown away by all their competitions, and then we get like garbage. No offense.
I mean, they made an effort. I remember tweeting. I can't remember who the guy is. Trevor's done blocked me ages ago, but the other guy who runs the competitions for Big Brother, I remember tweeting him a couple of times and saying, "Hey, I really liked that this season." So they did make an effort to up the game and try to change things a little bit. Maybe things weren't as predictable, and maybe that's a good thing. However, I do think the loss of some of the staples of Big Brother was probably a bad thing. The thing is, they got rid of some of the stuff that I liked in terms of the days competitions and some of the other mental competitions moving down towards the end, and they kept the stupid stuff like the slip and slide and the wall, which I don't really care for. So, I don't like that when they take away the things that I like and they keep the shit that I hate.
Yeah, they got rid of the spelling competition. I liked that one.
They were all thinking about words to spell. They all had words to spell, Melissa, and it never came up.
I know. I feel like they keep doing that. I like the spelling competition as long as it's done near, because I feel like it's one of the earlier ones where you're just getting to know people, and then when people spell out words, you're like, oh, you're smart, or oh, you're dumb, and it's like a good gauge.
I'm thinking about Brittany in 12 going, Rachel, she just had to spell something related to science, because she's such a big scientist, please, she makes her money right here. I love that diary room.
I feel like I'm kind of with the chat on this one. I feel like the first half or so of the season had pretty good competitions. I feel like there were some good ones here and there. Then the back half, the competitions kind of they got very repetitive. I'm not sure I like the changes that were made to the competitions. I prefer the days, I really do. But there you go.
Somebody in the chat's like, I missed the fold or pass competition. People know how to rig that competition now. What are you talking about? We haven't had that one in
ages because
or like majority rule
ago. Yeah, 7 seasons ago they figured it out.
Yeah, they can rig it. So stop. No, we're not bringing that shit back. Come on.
All right. I think we have to wrap it up now. There was lots to talk about. It's been a while. This is the season wrap up. We put everything in its proper place. Is there anything else that we need to talk about before we end this monstrosity?
No. I mean, Fessy, like I said, Fessy's still talking about the fact that he voted for Casey because she beat him in that final competition, for him to save himself. He doesn't even remember the fact that Tyler didn't even play in that. That's what I'm saying. I mean, he's just talking out of his mouth, and he doesn't know what the hell he's saying. It's infuriating to me. What can I say? They remember things the way that they want to remember them, Scottie included, and it's infuriating to me. I would be remiss if I didn't say I was excited to hear from Tyler, hopefully when he comes on, and I do think he will eventually. He can talk about his game, and hopefully by then, and maybe this is me just being a little bit evil, or I don't know where this is coming from, but I would like to hear a little bit of regret from his game. I don't know if that bugs you, Taran and Melissa, but it does bug me, the fact that he seems totally fine with losing the game and like, there's, nothing I could do when there is stuff in it, something
honestly,
you could have done.
It made me like JC a lot more after he lost and was so beyond devastated. It made me see how much it means to him and how upset he was that he lost. I mean, that's what I want to see. If somebody loses, I want to see them sad about losing. Obviously, I want them to be like, oh, I'm really happy for her, whatever. Like, Casey's a great person, blah, blah, blah. But I would like to see people be like, that really sucked. I wanted to win.
Of course he was sad about losing. What are you guys talking about?
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying generally. I liked JC's reaction. I felt bad for him.
Here's the thing, Taran. It read to me like he wasn't hungry for it. And that's the part that rubbed me the wrong way. And I wanted him to be hungry to win the game. I agree with Melissa. He can say, great for Casey. She's a deserving winner. She outplayed me till the cows come home. That's great. But I would like to see a little bit more self-reflection in his answers to say, if I would have done this, maybe I would have had a shot. If I didn't throw that Final Four veto, I could have probably won it then. That was probably a bad call on my part. But he doesn't want to talk about that. He's just like, I won America's favorite, so who cares?
Yeah, I guess it's more like I want to see them be like, I wish I had done things differently, or like rather than like I wouldn't change a thing, because then it's just like, well, but wouldn't you change something because you lost? I hate when people are just like, I wouldn't change anything. I'd do exactly the same way. I wouldn't do a single thing different, because you want to see them
Well,
kind of
but
be
I
more
don't. Did
reflective.
he say that?
No, I'm not saying he does. I'm saying generally, like what he was saying when he comes on, I'd like to see him be more self-reflective. So that's what I'm saying.
Melissa,
It's like,
the entire chat is like, he's with a rich fitness model now. He's winning in life, and Vanessa's like, he's got that love glow. And let's see, Della, well, he got hungry for Angela, and she has money, so who cares? So.
Look, we'll just have to see how he reacts. I would like to see like some self-reflection in terms of like I wish I had done things differently, or I would have changed this about my game, rather than just like putting his hands in the air and saying like I wouldn't change a thing.
Taran, that's the thing. He's like this right now. Like, oh, well, nothing I can do.
But hold on. Didn't he do his exit press and talk candidly about how he made mistakes in the game, he regrets them, and then he's just kind of like now moved on from that, and he's trying to focus on other things?
I look forward to your interview. I didn't hear anything like that. I thought it was just like, well, you know, I played the best.
If that's
what I was hearing from his
interviews. If that's true, that's fine. But I didn't watch his exit interview.
I haven't heard anything like that.
What do you mean? Didn't you read the paragraph about when he admits that he threw the veto? He's like, that was dumb. Like,
I don't remember him saying that. Did he say that? That
I'm
it was
pretty
dumb?
sure he did.
I thought we said it was dumb,
but like
I didn't read his exit interview.
I remember
generally
seeing a lot of people like, it's really refreshing how open he is about his mistakes. He's just not talking about it anymore, which I can't really fault him for. Like, why?
Well, he doesn't need to talk about it now. But I'm saying for your interview with him, I would like to see that sort of self-reflection rather than just like, I wouldn't change anything, because that doesn't make it for a good interview. It doesn't make for an exciting, interesting interview if you're just like, well, I don't regret anything. The game's over. Let's move on and talk about like other things. I feel like, yeah, he doesn't need to harp on it every day, but for your interview coming up, I would like him to have some sort of self-reflection and talk about like why he would change something or why he wouldn't change something, you know, like not just say I wouldn't change anything. And to be fair, like I'm not saying that like I wish he was crying or something when he lost. I loved the fact that he did get emotional about the America's favorite player and everything like that. I don't think that he was like emotionless all of a sudden after the game. I'm just saying like for the interview, I'd like to see some self-reflection.
Well, for the record, there is no currently scheduled interview.
Well, there will be at some point, we're hoping.
And I don't know. I don't really, I guess I don't get the same read as you guys. I feel like if he did an interview at some point, he would be open about his mistakes, and obviously he is trying to like it's not like he's obviously trying not to be the person that breaks down over his regrets for the game. So I'm sure he is like trying to cope with that. But I don't see him necessarily as the guy that's just like, who cares?
Okay, well, we'll see then. If he says, when asked the question about if you had it to do all over again, would you throw the Final Four veto? If he says yes, then I feel like that he's going to have to.
That's not the same, though.
What? I mean, like, I would like, because I think he still says, yeah, I would throw it all over again. And right, I feel like that if that's true, then that's a bigger indictment of his game than what we even have currently now. Like, if you know the results of what's going to happen, because remember, at the time that he threw it, he's still thinking, I could probably beat Casey at the end. Now that he knows he would have lost to her, would you still throw it again? If he still says yes, then I feel like you have to call him on, like, well, so what does that say about you as a player? The fact that you are going into a losing position and you don't seem to care about that.
I mean, I feel like that's a different thing than what you were talking about before, but sure. I mean, like, of course that speaks negatively toward his game. I don't know, like,
okay.
I feel like that's self-evident.
Look, here's the thing. Obviously, something's being lost in translation, because me and Melissa are united in our view of him. Like, he's just throwing his hands like, well, nothing I could do, when we do feel like there's something he could do. And I don't feel like he has owned those mistakes enough in the exit press.
All right,
I'm hoping
I would highly recommend that people check out the exit press that he did do, including myself and both of you, so that we can read it and come to our own conclusion, because I definitely felt like I had a different read on it from before.
Okay.
But all right.
Sounds good.
There we go. That's what we've got for you for the Big Brother 20 wrap up. Of course, as I mentioned, we will hopefully be back in a couple weeks to talk about Survivor. We'll do a draft there, and then we'll do some off-season Big Brother rankings podcast. I would really like to do a season rankings. I feel like we're due. So that will be fun, and I'm sure there's plenty of other stuff we can do, especially now that we've got the audience polling. I feel like that's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you check that all out. Of course, keep tuned in for the Taran show. I definitely would love to talk to some of these Big Brother house guests on that as well. So make sure you are on the lookout. You can also find me on Twitch. If you are missing the daily updates, just find me on Twitch. We'll hang out. We'll have fun.
What's your Twitch? What's your Twitch ID?
It's Taran Armstrong. So you can find it twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong. We're gonna play some social strategy games. We're gonna just hang out and talk sometimes, and we'll also play some other video games sometimes. So lots of variety coming your way.
All right,
there you go. Anything else that you guys want to plug or talk about or mention before we go?
I think I'm doing good. I'm watching television. All my shows are back. I'm having a great time, and I've been going to the casino, losing my ass. So I'm hoping to turn my luck around, Taran. I just need a little more luck. That's what I need.
All right. Well, I am going to be in Reno next week. So if you are heading to Reno for the RHAP show there, make sure you
are you gonna play poker
and say hi. If I have time, yeah.
I hope. Okay.
I had time the first time. I did not the second time, so we'll see.
Okay.
So find me there. Say hi. Always fun to meet you guys, especially you poker players. Lots of fun. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Armstrong Taran. Brent is at One Lucky Gay. Melissa is at It's Melissa with 3 A's. And that's it. That's a wrap on Big Brother 20. We're never going to talk about it ever again.
Yeah, just like we never talked about Big Brother 19.
Oh, God. We will definitely be talking about it again.
All right. Thank you to everyone who managed to stick it out for this whole podcast. You guys are truly wonderful. And we will see you for Big Brother Celebrity.